Chapter 442. Buzz. Drunken Sparrow Restaurant was filled to the brim with distinguished guests, countless who were currently toasting and exchanging cups. When the door was kicked open and sent flying in, the who in the restaurant were first stunned, then enraged. Bastard! Who goes there? Don't you know that we've already reserved this place? Are you seeking death? Get out of here, or else don't blame us for being impolite. Like a pride of enraged lions, the countless who cursed and cursed, their filthy words spewing forth. The who had never been so patient. With clanging sounds, many who raised their sabers and swords and charged at Wang Chang's group. But in the next moment, all the footsteps came to a sudden halt, because they realized that there were even more people charging in than they were. Kill them all. With a wave of his right hand, Wang Chang strode in through the rain. His voice was cold and brimming with a somber tone. Rainwater poured through the chinks in his armor, seeping through his shoulders, arms, and chest, and then flowing out of his boots in small rivulets. At this moment, Wang Chang was calloused to the extreme. No one had ever seen this sort of aura before. Young master. Up ahead, Wei Anfang and the others, who had already charged into the restaurant, turned their heads in shock. Killing so many people in the capital was no small matter. But Wang Chang's cold face was devoid of emotion. Move! With this order, the Qi clan's steel guards and Wang clan's guards surged forward like tigers charging into a pack of wolves. The Qi clan's steel guards and the Wang clan's guards had all come from the battlefield. A soldier's duty was to obey orders, and a military order was like a falling mountain. As long as there was an order, whether it was a mountain of blades or a sea of fire, they would advance without hesitation. In this aspect, they were completely different from the students of Deflecting Blade Manor, whose hands had never been stained with blood. Rumble! All the guards of the Zhuang clan, the guards of Deflecting Blade Manor, and the experts of the Wang clan had come prepared. Clad in armor and wielding sabers and axes, they charged into Drunken Sparrow Restaurant like a torrent of steel. Cold glints flickered in the air, and then ruthlessly slashed into the crowd. Blood splattered and screams filled the air. In a single clash, 10 some who had been sent flying. Kill them. They actually dared to attack us. Countless who roared. At Wang Liang's gathering, there were quite a few guards at his side. Together with the sailors, this was an enormous number. Under normal circumstances, no one could bully them. At first, Wang Chang found it strange that Wang Liang had been injured. But when he saw the situation inside Drunken Sparrow Restaurant, Wang Chang knew. Drunken Sparrow Restaurant was one of the largest restaurants in the capital, and more than 100 who had gathered here. Moreover, these people were all strong and had weapons. There were no weaklings at all. The people at Wang Liang's side were not enough to deal with them. Alas, they had run into Wang Chang, who had come prepared. Kill them all. Don't leave a single one alive. Wang Chang's voice was callous and somber. Righteousness does not wield wealth, benevolence does not command soldiers. This was his true self. In the 39th year of the Holy Emperor's reign, this should be the first time he entered the capital. At this time, he's already begun to recruit soldiers and buy horses. Wang Chang's gaze was like lightning as he scanned his surroundings, his mind extremely calm. The who in Drunken Sparrow Restaurant were dressed in all sorts of clothing. Wang Chang had even seen some of them at Big Golden Tooth's place. Wang Chang was well aware that these were not the who of the border, but the who merchants and guards of the capital. In the hinterland of the Tang dynasty, it was innately easy for who to interact with one another. And that person was even more skilled at making friends and winning over others. His ability to do so was unparalleled in the world. In that calamity that had swept down from Yuzhou in the northeast, even the Han had been won over, let alone the who. As expected, these people had all been won over by him. And in the future, these people would be the source of the world's chaos and disaster. Wang Liang had only inadvertently run into them gathering here to win over their hearts. No matter what, these people could not be allowed to remain. Everyone else follow me. After leaving behind enough people to deal with the who martial artists on the first floor, Wang Chang's expression was cold as he led the rest of the crowd to the second floor. Wang Chang had traveled as fast as a shooting star when he arrived, but now that he was inside Drunken Sparrow Restaurant, his steps became slower, and his expression more and more calm. When a tiger pounced, its feet would become softer, and its movements more and more silent. When a crocodile hunted, the water would become calmer, and the surroundings more and more quiet. After half a lifetime as a soldier, Wang Chong had long ago developed the ability to remain calm at crucial moments. Only by having a heart as still as water could one remain calm. And only by remaining calm could one not slip up. Whoosh! The commotion on the first floor had already alarmed the people on the second floor. As Wang Chong walked up the stairs, the second floor of Drunken Sparrow restaurant was already in an uproar. Countless sabers and swords were unsheathed, the sound of metal clanging against metal. There was also a sharp aura, accompanied by the stench of battle and blood, shooting down through the wooden planks. Wang Chong was no stranger to this sort of aura. This was the aura of a soldier, and one that had been seasoned on the battlefield, elite soldiers who had seen blood. Just who are you people? As Wang Chong's group stepped onto the stairs of Drunken Sparrow restaurant's second floor, cold light flashed as countless figures began to surround them. Unlike the Who on the first floor, the Who on the second floor were all dressed in armor, all of them well-trained and extremely formidable. Behind these people was a middle-aged Who leader in his 30s, with a hawkish nose, deep eyes, and a well-built body. However, he exuded a rare scholarly aura. He was currently staring at Wang Chong, his face ashen. Unlike the Who on the first floor, this middle-aged Who spoke in the Han language, and each of his words was articulate. Let alone the Who, even Wang Chong had rarely heard of this among the Han. On the two sides of this middle-aged Who, the other two Who leaders were also looking at Wang Chong. Wang Chong's gaze did not linger on the others, but on the slightly plump and not very tall Who leader in the middle of the three. Warning! User has encountered a fated enemy ahead of time. This world will undergo a massive transformation. User will sense the hostility of the world's energy, and the activation of the world constraint will be brought forward. Remaining time 6 months. The moment Wang Chong turned his head, the Stone of Destiny's voice rang out in his mind, brimming with danger and warnings. But he turned a deaf ear to them. At this moment, time seemed to stop. Wang Chong's eyes were bloodshot, and all his attention was focused on the slightly plump figure standing next to him. Kong Yaoyuoshan. Whether he was called Kong Yaoyuoshan or in Yaoyuoshan, or even if he had changed his surname, whether it was in this life, the last life, or the reincarnation of countless lives, Wang Chong would never forget this face in front of him. How many years had it been? After so many years, he had finally met this person again. This person whom he had wanted to grind to ashes countless times. The Kong Yaoyuoshan before him was not as fat as he had been in the future, and Wang Chong had never seen him so young. But even though his face was young, Wang Chong had recognized him at a glance. "I've finally found you." Wang Chong clenched his fists, his eyes turning even redder. Fate had countless turning points. If one used them well, one could completely change one's fate, and that of the world. Vast Crane Pavilion was the turning point of the Wang clan's fate. So by infuriating Yao Feng, he had changed the fate of the entire Wang clan. The Consort Taijin incident was the turning point of the King of Song's fate. By changing the King of Song's attitude toward Consort Taijin, he had naturally changed the King of Song's fate. And Kong Yaoyuoshan was unquestionably the turning point of the fate of the entire world, and the billions of people living in it. In his last life, he had spent more than 30 years to kill Kong Yaoyuoshan, but by that time, it was already too late. And this was unquestionably his greatest opportunity. Wang Chong had not expected that his cousin Wang Liang's injury would lead him to the greatest foe of his life. If his guess was right, this was the first time Kong Yaoyuoshan had entered the capital. The current him was far from being as powerful as he had been in his last life. He also didn't have as many guards at his side, and he certainly didn't have those foreign invaders at his disposal. This was unquestionably an important turning point. If he could successfully kill him, Wang Chong was sure that the fate of the world would undergo a massive change. He would no longer need to spend 30 years to complete his mission like he had in the past. As these thoughts flitted through his mind, Wang Chong quickly regained his composure. Kill him. Wang Chong's eyes flashed as he stepped forward with his right foot. As everyone watched, he suddenly pointed a finger at the slightly plump, silent, and unremarkable figure next to the middle-aged Hu leader. Wait a moment, just who are you? The scholarly middle-aged Hu leader was enraged and wanted to shout at Wang Chong to stop. Even now, he still didn't know what was going on. These Han had charged in and killed anyone they saw. Although he wasn't afraid of slaughter, he still had to be a sensible person. But Wang Chong had no intention of paying any attention to him. Since Kang Yaoyuan had appeared here, the other two Hu leaders were probably the foreign brothers. Although he didn't know why only 3 of the foreign brothers had appeared here, this was no longer what Wang Chong was concerned about. Although the collapse of a great building was partly due to the erosion of wind and rain, its collapse would inevitably begin with the decay of its foundation. Uzan might be strong, Arabia might be powerful, but no matter how many experts looked at them, they could not compare to the erosion from within. In the future, when Kang Yaoyuan led the rebel army south, the An brothers would be one of them. Boom! They didn't care about the Hu across from Wang Chong. Killing one person was killing 100 was also killing. When Wang Chong gave the order, they would carry it out. The deflecting blade manor, the spirit vein, the Wang clan, and the experts of the various clans added together formed a force that no one could underestimate. Boom! In a flash of light, a fiery red cloud howled out from behind Wang Chong, instantly plunging into the dense ranks of Hu experts. The crimson spear of flames, Zhao Yadong. At this moment, the first person to support Wang Chong was none other than the daughter of the Zhao clan that Wang Chong had encountered on his training mission, Zhao Yadong. As a companion who had gone through thick and thin with Wang Chong, Zhao Yadong had never seen Wang Chong hate a person so much. Unlike others, Zhao Yadong did not have such complicated thoughts. Since Wang Chong wanted to kill a person, she would help him. There was no why or what to do afterwards. Some people were born to be companions and did not need to ask for reasons. Trust was trust. Since Wang Chong wanted to kill a person, that person absolutely deserved to die. Boom! Halos rumbled and stellar energy exploded. The second person to follow Zhao Yadong was not Bai Siling of the Bai clan, Su Gan of the Su clan, or Fang Xianying, but Huang Qianer of the Huang clan. This renowned fairy of dainty hands was drenched in sweat, but her eyes shone brightly, and her expression was as proud as ever. A man's promise was worth 1,000 taels of gold, and a woman's promise was no less than a man's. Since she had promised the Huang clan to serve and follow Wang Chong, she, Huang Qianer, would fulfill her promise to the end. Boom! There seemed to be a clap of thunder in the air as Huang Qianer suddenly appeared in the crowd like a phantom. The 5 fingers on her right hand glowed with a yellow jade-like radiance. And with a single strike, Huang Qianer shattered the halo of thorns and stellar energy of a true martial realm, Hu expert. Her slender fingers pressed against the man's chest, instantly shattering his armor and splattering blood. Although the Hu expert had done his best to resist, he was still sent flying like a kite with its string cut. Huang Qianer's strength was so great that she even sent 3 nearby Hu warriors flying. While they were still in the air, Huang Qianer's tyrannical strength had already shattered their internal organs. Before they could even land, they were already corpses. Attack! Kill them! And Wenjin was furious. Of the 3, he was the oldest and had the highest status, so he was the one who had hosted this gathering. He had not expected to encounter such a problem. Don't hold back. If anything happens, blame it on me. And Wenjin was also furious. So what if they were at the feet of the Son of Heaven? Since these people dared to attack him, then no matter where they came from, only death awaited them. Since he had already taught them a lesson today, there was no harm in killing them again. If anyone was blind and wanted to bully them, just because they were barbarians, they would only be thinking themselves clever and courting death. He didn't care about the other Hu, but in the capital, there was nothing that the An brothers, generals, and 2 protector generals couldn't handle. Chapter 443. But An Wenjin's viciousness didn't last for long. In the next moment, he heard the twanging of arrows. Not even the storm outside could drown out the shrill whistling of the arrows. Xiao xiao xiao. Hundreds upon thousands of arrows, each imbued with immense strength, flew in from all directions like a swarm of locusts. Boom! 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 With a series of loud noises, The sharp arrows pierced through the wall, creating holes that looked like honeycombs as they shot out from all directions. Ah! Screams of agony filled the air. All of the Hu's attention was focused on Wang Chong and the others, so they didn't expect the fatal attack to come from behind. At such a close distance, it was impossible to stop the arrows from piercing through the walls. In just an instant, more than half of the Hu were either killed or injured by the arrows. The archers that Wang Chong had brought with him were all master archers, and every single one of their bows was imbued with destructive stellar energy. When the arrows pierced through their chests, they even sent their bodies flying, nailing them to the ground. Even though some of the more powerful Hu experts had stellar energy protecting them and managed to knock away 1 or 2 arrows, their stellar energy was still scattered by the dense barrage of arrows. They only managed to last for a few moments before the arrows pierced through their chests and heads. Blood gushed out like a river, seeping through the floor and flowing to the lower floors. The Hu on the first floor were horrified. Damn it! Master archers! He actually brought master archers. Go! Hurry! And Wenjin's face paled. Including the Hu experts that had been invited from the capital, there were more than 100 of them in this gathering, and they were all experts at true martial realm or above. There were even quite a few experts who were close to profound martial realm. The Hu were known for their ferocious nature, and they were skilled fighters. And Wenjin had thought that the strength of the Hu would allow them to do as they pleased in the capital. He didn't think that he would encounter this ferocious youth of unknown origins. And Wenjin knew that the strength of a master archer wasn't something that any ordinary person could deal with. And not even the great clans could deal with them. The youth before him definitely had an extraordinary background. More importantly, he had more people than he did. Ha ha ha, you think you can leave? Right after the first volley of arrows, a burst of laughter in Hu came from outside Drunken Sparrow restaurant. This laughter was like thunder, mingling with the wind and rain. Although it was spoken in Hu, its pronunciation was perfect. It was none other than the invincible great general Li Sai. Li Sai had set his sights on the western regions, so he had long ago learned the Hu language. The conversation of the Hu was no secret to his ears. Boom! An earth-shattering bang rang out, and before the sound faded away, an enchanting figure smashed through the wall of Drunken Sparrow restaurant, creating an enormous human-shaped hole as he barged in from the southeast direction. Behind this person was a massive wood steel sword that was even taller than a grown man. It was extremely striking. Bzzz. The moment he appeared, Li Sai attacked. Rumble. In the time it took for a spark to fly off a flint, an aura that caused one's scalp to go numb suddenly appeared in everyone's perception. The sky darkened, and the entire inn was suddenly plunged into endless darkness. Following which, a huge saber chi over 30 zhang long, majestic and incomparably dazzling, slashed down from the sky like a fiend god. Boom! The massive Drunken Sparrow restaurant was cleaved in two by this terrifying strength, like it was made of paper. This saber not only cleaved through the entire restaurant, but also all the Hu on the second floor. Screams, the shattering of wooden boards, and the shattering of tables and chairs merged into one. And Wenjin, standing in the direction of the saber energy, was sent flying by the saber energy, blood spurting out of his body. Profound martial realm expert. And Wenjin screamed, his mind reeling in shock. The Yin clan had always been a clan of Turkic generals and scholars. It was only because they had been ostracized and massacred by the other Turkic tribes that they had submitted to the Tang dynasty. Even so, the inheritance of the Yin clan's martial arts still existed. This was evident from the fact that Wenjin had reached Tier 9 of the true martial realm. This was an important reason why he was the leader of today's gathering. And to shatter his protective stellar energy with a single saber strike and easily defeat him, the opponent had to be at least a profound martial realm expert, and at least a Tier 5 profound martial realm expert. Just where did this youth come from? As he was sent flying, and Wenjin's mind was filled with shock, and this was the only thought left in his mind. He could put aside the vast numbers of true martial realm experts, but high-tier profound martial realm experts were proud and arrogant. Each one of them had a powerful background, and would not easily submit to another. Subduing a profound martial realm expert was not something an ordinary clan or faction could accomplish. But Wenjin still had no idea how he had offended this person. All of this was like a nightmare, a disaster that had come out of nowhere. Boom! In the restaurant, seeing the strongest of them, Wenjin, sent flying by a single saber strike, and the massive restaurant cleaved in two. The ferocious who instantly lost their will to fight. Run! In an instant, all the surviving who experts shot out of the cracked tavern, fleeing in all directions through the rain. The eagle, kill him! Wind and rain poured in and thunder boomed in his ears. Wang Chong's eyes were like lightning, and he paid no attention to the other who. His gaze was locked onto the chubby figure that was fleeing the furthest 10 some zhang away. Whether it was in his last life or this one, whether he had grown his wings or not, Kong Yaoyuan had always been slippery. He would act according to the situation, and if something went wrong, he would always be the one to flee the fastest and the furthest. Alas, Wang Chong had come for him this time. No matter how crafty he was, he would never be able to escape. Buzz! Several dozen zhang away, the chubby figure seemed to hear a voice, and his body suddenly froze. But then he picked up speed, charging toward a warhorse in the rain. At the same time, a figure like a giant eagle drew an arc in the air and descended from the night sky. It was the pursuing the eagle. But the eagle was fast, and there was a figure even faster than the eagle. Rumble! There was a flash of light, and the scene from before appeared once again. A majestic saber chi was vast and powerful, and it was incredibly dazzling. It suddenly tore through the void, and although it was launched later, it arrived first, slashing down towards the slightly plump figure in the distance. At the crucial moment, Li Sai had finally struck. In this operation, Wang Chong's greatest reliance was Li Sai. But Li Sai had never seen in Yaoyuan before. He had originally believed that the strongest person in the room with the strongest aura was Wang Chong's target, but it now appeared that this was not the case. But even if he killed the wrong target, it would have no effect on a person like Li Sai. Not even the strongest of the Hu, Wenjin, was a match for him, let alone the even weaker in Yaoyuan. Boom! In the darkness, the saber energy tore through the air. Just when Wang Chong was about to relax, something completely unexpected occurred. Boom! The world suddenly lit up. Before everyone's eyes, a blazing bolt of lightning zigzagged and suddenly struck down from the dark clouds. It struck Li Sai's saber light without any deviation. This strike not only scattered Li Sai's saber energy, but the tyrannical lightning even followed the saber energy to strike the leaping invincible great general Li Sai. Ah! Li Sai yelled as he was sent flying along with his saber. How could this be? Wang Chong's pupils constricted, not daring to believe his eyes. Although it was a thunderstorm, this lightning bolt had been far too sudden. In truth, it wasn't just Wang Chong. Everyone else, including the Hu, was dumbfounded by this sight. Boom! A massive boom quickly roused the crowd from their stupor. Several dozen zhang away, in the middle of the torrential rain, a spear was thrust into the ground, the end of the spear buzzing and trembling. The eagle had attacked Li Sai with its tail between its jaws, but the eagle's attack still missed. In a flash, Yaoyuan used a strange footwork technique that no one had ever seen before. His body twisted in an M-shaped trajectory, barely dodging the eagle's determined strike. After successfully dodging twice, Yaoyuan once more charged out. But the eagle's interference caused Yaoyuan's speed to inevitably slow. Oomph! A cold snort came from behind him. The moment Yaoyuan's speed slowed, Wang Chong leaped into the air and immediately attacked, using the leaping dragon art. Bzzz. In the darkness, Wang Chong seemed to be flung into the air by some invisible force. After several flips, he soared several dozen zhang into the air. Luotong! Wang Chong's voice resounded through the night sky. Twang! The bowstring exploded like a clap of thunder in the middle of the day. In an instant, several sharp arrows shot out like lightning bolts, piercing through the rain and the storm with the speed of a thunderbolt toward the distant Yaoyuan. Luotong's archery was otherworldly, and none of his arrows missed their mark. Wang Chong had already seen his prowess when he was surrounding the Gogrian assassins. He could kill a true martial realm expert with each arrow. All of the targets fell to the ground in response. Within 200 meters, Luo Tong's arrows had never missed their mark, let alone at such a close distance. But something astonishing happened once more. And Yao Yuishan's ears twitched as if he had already expected this. Just as the bowstring vibrated, he suddenly rolled on the ground. Without even turning his head, he flipped a few times in the rain, sticking close to the ground. The 6 arrows all landed on the ground behind him, but Yao Yuishan, covered in mud, got up from the ground and began to leave. Although he seemed to be in a sorry state, he had once more successfully escaped. How is this possible? On the distant roof, Luo Tong held his bow with both hands, his entire body covered in armor. His sturdy bronze armor made him seem like a god of war in the rain. But Luo Tong, who had always seemed like a god of war, now had none of his usual composure. It wasn't that Luo Tong had never encountered a formidable opponent before. If one was strong enough, they were completely capable of scattering his arrows. But that was completely different from the person before him. There was only one kind of person who could escape his arrow attack in that manner with their back to him. A master archer. Chapter 444. Only a master archer had the best understanding of a master archer. Only a master archer could determine the direction, distance, and position of an incoming arrow through the twang of the bowstring. The best master archers didn't even need to hear the twang of the bowstring. Experts who had immersed themselves in the art of archery were extremely sensitive to being aimed at. As long as an arrow was aimed at them, they could immediately sense it, even if they were very far away. This was the so-called intuition of archery. It had been a long time since Luo Tong had encountered such a formidable archery master to be able to dodge his determined arrow in the pouring rain without even turning his head. Flap, flap. The torrential downpour blotted out the sun, striking the eaves, stone slabs, armor and sabers like metal pellets. Wang Chong had no time to worry about Luo Tong at this time. Although Luo Tong's missed attack was rather surprising, Wang Chong was not very surprised. And Yao Yuishan had always been an expert archer on the border between the Hu and Han, able to ride a horse and shoot with both hands. Even the master archers of the Turks, and who admired his talent in archery, let alone others. But no matter how accomplished he was in archery, he had to die today. Boom! A bolt of lightning flashed through the sky, illuminating the world, and also illuminating Wang Chong, who had climbed to the highest point in the sky. Whoosh! A white wave of rain was flung out by Wang Chong's sword. A moment later, fierce winds began to blow and spiritual energy surged in from all around, forming a massive spiritual vortex at Wang Chong's side. On the other hand, Wang Chong was one with his sword. Wrapped in the boundless spiritual energy, he descended from the sky like a bolt of lightning, head down and feet up. The leaping dragon art was slow in rising into the sky, but it was fast in descending. As it descended, it was like a bolt of lightning, its speed peerless. Boom! In the rain, a blurry black line descended from the sky. In the blink of an eye, it had caught up to the distant Yao Yuishan. Ong! Nothing could be seen in the gloom, but countless dragons were roaring in the void, and even the dense sound of the torrential rain could not drown them out. Wang Chong, who was at Tier 3 of the true martial realm, directly possessed the strength of the peak of Tier 5 of the true martial realm, with the help of the leaping dragon technique, and the indestructible Wuxia steel sword, and the aura piercer. He had exchanged allowed Wang Chong to directly possess the strength to threaten experts at Tier 6, or even Tier 7 of the true martial realm. As for Yao Yuishan, he had been using a technique to dodge the attacks of Eagle and Luo Tong, and he was also fleeing as quickly as he could. At this point, he couldn't help but have a small gap in his energy. And Yao Yuishan, stay behind. Wang Chong held the Wuxia steel sword tightly. His head was facing downwards and his feet were facing upwards. His body and sword had become one, and he let out a deafening roar in his heart. The current in Yao Yuishan was still far from being as formidable as he had been in the future. The moment Wang Chong had entered Drunken Sparrow restaurant, he had sensed that Yao Yuishan's cultivation could not surpass true martial Tier 7. He was already within the range of his techniques. Wang Chong didn't even need to kill him. All he needed to do was hold him down and slow him down. Then the experts from Deflecting Blade Manor, the Spirit Vein Mountain, and the great clans would be able to surround him. No matter how capable Yaoyuan was, he would find it hard to escape even if he grew wings. Boom! In the next moment, something completely unexpected occurred. Just as Wang Chong was about 3 feet away from Yaoyuan's back, a strange phenomenon occurred. The air surged and a majestic energy imbued with the might of the world suddenly swept out from the depths of space-time to stand between Wang Chong and Yaoyuan. Boom! As if he had crashed into an invisible wall of energy, Wang Chong's thunderous attack was blocked by this invisible wall of energy, and the raging energy of the world in the wall of energy had sent Wang Chong flying, accompanied by a storm of wind and rain. Bang! The moment he was sent flying, Wang Chong's heart was filled with shock. How is this possible? Wang Chong's mind was in complete disarray. At that moment, he had clearly seen Yaoyuan turn his head to glance at him. His expression was just as shocked and confused as his own. Pung! His body rolled a few times on the ground, his armor hitting against the ground continuously. Wang Chong stood up from the ground, his entire body like a wooden chicken, still reeling from that massive shock. The moment he was sent flying, Wang Chong could clearly sense that a vast energy had suddenly erupted from the depths of space-time to stop him. This energy was vast and majestic, like the world itself. It had already far surpassed the limits of the true martial realm. It was not something that someone of Yaoyuan's level could erupt with. It felt like an invisible and powerful existence had suddenly taken action to stop him. Damn it! As a bolt of lightning flashed through his mind, Wang Chong suddenly recalled that before he attacked, he had heard a string of voices in his mind. Because of user's actions, the fated enemy will receive the protection of the world's energy. The chances of the fated enemy surviving have been increased, while the chances of user failing have been increased. In the future, every time user meets the target will receive an increase in the world's blessing. Could it be that I have no way of killing Yaoyuan? Countless thoughts flashed through Wang Chong's mind. As someone who had come back from the dead, Wang Chong's path was completely incompatible with this world. It simply could not be allowed to exist in this normal world. From the moment he had reincarnated, Wang Chong had already sensed the restraining and repulsive force of this world. But Wang Chong had never imagined that this repulsive force would be so powerful. It could not only repel him, but also increase the strength of important targets to stop him. Changing fate was no easy task. In the fate of this world, Yaoyuan undoubtedly occupied an extremely important position. It could even be said that no one was more important than him. If one could successfully kill him, erase him before he had made a name for himself, and succeeded in his rebellion, then the fate and history of this world would undoubtedly change. If Yaoyuan died now, no one would rise up in Yuzhou, and the Tang dynasty would not collapse from within. Without Yaoyuan, no one would summon the invading armies from the other side, and the central plains would not have fallen and been destroyed. These would have been two completely different worlds. It wasn't as if Wang Chong had never changed history or fate. The fate of the King of Song and the fate of his clan had all been changed. But none of those changes could compare to what was happening now. This was no longer just a change for one prince or one clan. It involved all the living beings of the world, the millions upon millions of people, and the survival of countless empires. This change was so massive that for the first time, Wang Chong felt the energy of the world directly interfering with him. No, not just interfering, the energy of the world was even directly increasing in Yaoyuan's strength. This was the so-called blessing. Is it too early? Is it because Yaoyuan still hasn't completed his mission that this phenomenon is occurring? Wang Chong's mind suddenly became clear. As a person who had died once, as a soul that had reincarnated in this world and never existed, this was something that only Wang Chong could encounter. But not only was the killing intent in Wang Chong's heart not extinguished, it only intensified and became more determined. So what if the world is interfering? Even if the entire world is protecting you, I still want you dead. Wang Chong clenched his fists and clenched his teeth. He raised his head once more. And in the darkness, Wang Chong's eyes once more exploded with a frightening cold light. Not good. He's going to escape. Hurry and stop him. Nay, he still has other preparations. Ah, it's the divine Fergana horse. The heavy rain poured down, drenching everyone. The area around Drunken Sparrow restaurant was in chaos. A bolt of lightning flashed through the clouds. And at that moment, everyone could clearly see that beneath the lightning, a tall, muscular and blood-soaked divine steed had heard the whistle and was charging toward the restaurant. And Yao Yuashan only needed a flip to mount the divine Fergana horse and gallop into the darkness, soon vanishing. Everyone follow me. Almost at the same time Yao Yuashan rode off on his Fergana steed. He heard the clattering of hooves on the stone floor as he gave chase. Riding on the white-hoofed shadow, Wang Chong chased through the dense rain, not letting up. Only the white-hoofed shadow, at Wang Chong's side, could catch up to Yao Yuashan's foreign Fergana horse. Bang! The clattering of metal resounded through the air. As he pursued, Wang Chong immediately released his halo of Dusk Stallion. The halo of Dusk Stallion vibrated, causing the surrounding rain to explode. This light not only shrouded Wang Chong's feet, but also spread to the feet of all the people around Drunken Sparrow restaurant. At this moment, everyone's speed, strength and dexterity were all boosted. Catch, young master. In the darkness the eagle bellowed. He was the first to mount a large horse and gallop away. Next Li Sai, Zhao Jingdian, Wei Anfang, Marchioness Yi, and the others gave chase. No one knew why Wang Chong was so relentless in his pursuit of that Hu. But at this moment, there was no question that Wang Chong's will was the will of all of them. No matter what he wanted to do, all of them would unconditionally obey. Rumble! The earth quaked, and for the first time, the clattering of hooves drowned out the rumbling of the rain and thunder. In a flash of lightning, countless cavalry transformed into a flood of steel in pursuit. The rain was getting heavier and denser. Wave after wave of lightning seemed intent on cleaving apart the world. It was not yet nightfall, but the dense black clouds in the sky had already dyed the world into darkness. An uneasy aura was spreading through the world. In the past, the dogs would not stop barking at the slightest movement. At this time, they also felt something and let out uneasy whines, but they did not bark. Boom! Another bolt of lightning flashed through the sky, its dazzling light like a river hanging upside down in the sky. This dazzling river illuminated the rumbling earth, the trembling roof tiles, and the stone streets, the galloping Fergana horse, and the seemingly plump but actually muscular Hu on its back. This was a Hu of around 28 or 29. He had hawk-like eyes, a high nose, a square face, and a full beard. This sort of appearance was far too common among the frontier Hu. Chapter 445. Just what's going on here? The torrential rain pelted down on his face like lead pellets. As Yao Yuashan galloped through the rain, his horse left a long trail of white water behind him. The galloping of hooves behind him continued without end, each sound hammering against Yao Yuashan's heart. It had been a long time since Yao Yuashan had experienced the feeling of being pursued. This group of people was menacing and vicious to the extreme, and Yao Yuashan was well aware that if they caught up to him or delayed him in the slightest, only death would await him. This intense sense of danger made Yao Yuashan's scalp go numb, and his entire body feel like it was about to explode. The divine Fergana horse he had obtained from Yuzhou was already moving at its fastest speed, but Yao Yuashan didn't feel the slightest bit of distance between them. There was no doubt that this opponent's steed was of the same level as his. This made Yao Yuashan feel even more uneasy, but all this danger and unease could not compare to a single thought in Yao Yuashan's mind. Just why was this happening? There were so many people in Drunken Sparrow restaurant. So why was that Han youth from the capital only targeting him? He was also the least famous of the foreign brothers. So why was everyone else ignoring him and only chasing him? More importantly, Yao Yuashan couldn't understand. From Yuzhou to here, he had always been low-key, obedient, and lived with his tail between his legs. He had never done anything that was out of line. Why was that youth ignoring everyone else and only bringing so many people to chase him? Yao Yuashan knew that he had never met this youth, so he naturally didn't have any grudges with him. But those hateful, bloodshot eyes wouldn't lie. For a moment, Yao Yuashan had to admit that he had been frightened. This was no longer some ordinary loathing or hatred. It was a blood feud. Thus, The moment his sworn brother and Wenjin had been cut down, and Yao Yuishin had immediately fled. He had a very bad feeling. If he had been just a little slower, he would have never been able to escape. Just who is that youth? Just when did I have a grudge with him? Yuzhou. Impossible. The youths of the capital are all soft and tender. They would never go to such a remote place. Besides, given their status, who would dare to deal with them? Could it be the capital? Impossible. This is the first time I've entered the capital. If I've seen him before, there's no way I wouldn't know. And I wouldn't be hunted down for no reason. And Yao Yuishin leaned against the back of his horse, his breathing ragged, countless thoughts flashing through his mind. Perhaps it was because he had escaped too many times, and was chased by that person too many times. After a long period of apprehension, and Yao Yuishin realized that he was now extremely skilled at escaping from all sorts of dire situations. Behind him, the galloping of hooves stirred up a waterfall of rain and splashing water. The soul-stirring clanging caused Yao Yuishin's brows to wildly rise, and his heart to tremble. And Yao Yuishin could completely imagine the cold face of that youth behind him, his cold and blood-red eyes, even the sound of his breathing. He was already very close to her. But Yao Yuishin didn't even dare to turn his head. An unreasonable pursuit, a ruthless and thunderous method, and that pair of blood-red eyes filled with hatred. And Yao Yuishin had never imagined that there was another person besides that person who could make him so panicked. More importantly, Yao Yuishin still had no idea where all this had come from. Could it be because of that person? Yao Yuishin suddenly recalled the group of Han that he had driven out of Drunken Sparrow restaurant. That group of people had come from all sorts of backgrounds, but a significant portion of them had been sailors. When they had attacked, that group of people had shouted that the young man leading them was from the capital's Wang clan. At the time, Wenjin had easily interrupted them. Wenjin had only said one thing. The Wang clan was a top-class clan of the capital. If they were having a gathering, how could they not reserve the entire place, and even have a banquet with these people? It had to be fake. And then he had beaten those people until their bones were broken. At the time, those people had been extremely agitated, saying that they would definitely regret it. After thinking it over, Yao Yuishin could only think of this matter. But even so, this matter had nothing to do with him. The one who had done it was Wenjin, and he had nothing to do with it. Even if that youth wanted to find someone, he should have found Wenjin, and the others, not him. I'll first go to the relay station in the western part of the city. That's the safest place right now. All these thoughts flashed through his mind, and Yao Yuishin suddenly squeezed his horse's abdomen and galloped away. In the darkness, torrential rain poured down and lightning flashed, illuminating two groups of people. Wang Chong lay on his horse, his lips tightly clenched, his body motionless. Behind him, though there was the thundering of hooves, there was also no sound. The silence at this moment was far more soul-stirring than if there was any sound. No matter where you run, you won't be able to escape the capital. Wang Chong stared ahead. The capital was a cage. He had come from the city gate, and the city gate was right behind him. No matter where Yao Yuishin ran, as long as he didn't run out of the city gate, he would never be able to escape. No, even if Yao Yuishin ran out of the city gate, he still wouldn't be able to escape. In his last life, he had spent 35 years in the Central Plains, but he had still not been able to save it from its fate of destruction. In this life of the Central Plains, Wang Chong had already made the preparations to spend an enormous amount of time and effort. But Wang Chong had never imagined that the heavens would send him such a good opportunity through the hands of fate. And Yao Yuishin had actually come alone from the distant Yuzhou to the capital, right in front of him. Never before had Wang Chong felt that he was so close to success, so close to completing his mission. It was no longer right in front of his eyes, but within his reach. As long as he succeeded in killing Yao Yuishin, fate would undergo an inconceivable reversal. Of the countless possibilities of fate, this was undoubtedly the easiest, and also the one that required the least price. The current Yao Yuishin was too weak, completely unable to compare to that ambitious and ruthless character of his future life, the supreme villain. Wang Chong was well aware that if he missed this chance, he would definitely regret it. because at that time, he would never be able to so easily gain the upper hand. Rumble. Wang Chong couldn't see what was behind him, but he could sense that more and more people were joining in. The Wang clan's enormous influence in the capital was being displayed. Wang Chong was well aware that these people were not from Deflecting Blade Manor or the Spirit Vein Mountain, nor were they even from the Wang clan. As an illustrious clan of ministers and generals that could stand on equal footing with the Yao clan, an existence that even King Qi had to pay attention to, with the help of Wang Chong, the Qilin son of the Wang clan, the Wang clan was displaying its enormous influence. The Wang clan was like an enormous beast hiding beneath the surface of the water, possessing boundless power. It was just that the Wang clan's modesty, and low-profile style limited this power. This restriction did not come from Wang Yan or Wang Chong, nor did it come from Wang Chong's big uncle. Rather, it came from Wang Chong's grandfather, Duke Jie Wang Jiuling, who was revered by the entire world. Duke Jie was incorruptible, thrifty and disciplined, and he demanded the same of his children. So much so that the entire Wang clan was like this. However, although this established the Wang family's moral reputation, it also limited the Wang family's power. It was said that success came from Xiaohe, and defeat came from Xiaohe. Wang Chong's grandfather had once been a prime minister, and he had worked hard to reverse the tides of the imperial court and pacify the chaos. He had also fought against the Turks and the Khitans, and together with His Majesty and his ministers, they had created the golden age of the Tang dynasty. This was the source of the Wang clan's strength, but at the same time, Wang Chong's grandfather's cultivation of character also limited the Wang clan's strength. But not even Wang Chong's grandfather could have imagined that a variable like Wang Chong would eventually appear in the Wang clan. His appearance had completely broken the rules set down by the Wang clan. Most importantly, the excellence he had displayed had won the approval of the Wang clan's old master. Cree. In the middle of the chase, a shrill cry came from up ahead. In the gloomy sky and the torrential rain, and Yao Yuishan suddenly galloped his horse around the corner of an alley, and behind a wall, vanishing. At this sight, Wang Chong's pupils constricted, and his horse suddenly slowed down. But without much hesitation, Wang Chong and his horse did not walk through the gate, but charged straight at the high wall. Boom! Countless bricks mixed with the rain shot out for 50 zhang. As the high wall collapsed, Wang Chong rode the white-hoofed shadow out from behind it. Buzz! In a flash, Wang Chong stopped. 40-some zhang from Wang Chong was a row of towering courtyards, and in front of this courtyard stood 60 to 70 muscular figures on warhorses, armed with armor and wielding weapons. These 60 to 70 figures were Hu Han, Khitans, and even Uzin. The torrential rain fell on their bodies, but these people remained motionless. As the rain fell into their eyes, they did not even blink. Crackle! A blazing bolt of lightning flashed over the courtyard, illuminating the world, and also illuminating those wolf-like wild gazes in front of the courtyard. These stalwart figures stood on the battlefield of the army, the green flame spear emblazoned on their armor, the most striking symbol of the Anong Protectorate. Yuzhou soldiers. Wang Chong immediately calmed down. The figures in the courtyard all had vigorous auras, each of them at the true martial realm, and a few of them faintly exuded the aura of the profound martial realm. This was not a level that any ordinary elite force could reach. At this moment, Wang Chong knew that he had made a mistake, and Yao Yuishan had definitely not come alone. At his side were the elite soldiers of the Anong Protectorate. It seems like all the rebels and traitors of the Tang dynasty have come. Wang Chong clenched his fists, his eyes turning even redder. The sudden appearance of these 60 to 70 powerful figures had not only failed to extinguish his killing intent, it had even stimulated it. Yuzhou was a land of both foreigners and Han. It gave birth to the most valiant warriors, but it also gave birth to the greatest number of rebels and traitors. The Tang dynasty was a colossus that had lasted for more than 200 years, and Yao Yuishan alone could not shake it. There were many rebellious ministers around him. There was no question that these rebels were standing before him, and Yao Yuishan had rushed here precisely because this group of people could protect him. Good fortune. I didn't think that all my opponents would come. And Yao Yuishan, Even if you grow wings, you won't be able to escape today. Wang Chong clenched his fists so tightly that he didn't even notice his nails digging into his flesh. The people he hated and wanted to kill the most in his life had all come, and all of them had appeared in front of him. Chapter 446. Boom! Brick walls shot out in all directions, and a giant figure riding a large horse smashed through the wall, following behind Wang Chong into the courtyard. Is it these people? Li Sai carried a massive Wuxia steel saber on his back. His 2-meter-tall figure made him seem like a mighty god of legends as he stood guard at Wang Chong's side. Wang Chong's white hoof Shadow and Yao Yuxian's Fergana horse were both top-class steeds. When they galloped, they were as fast as lightning, not something a normal person could catch up to. Only Li Sai, with his powerful strength and high-level speed halo, was able to catch up without falling behind. His gigantic physique, powerful aura, as well as his high-level profound martial realm strength, was a huge shock to the underworld continent soldiers. Thus, even though Wang Chong had charged in alone, the Yuzhou soldiers did not dare to act recklessly. Just who are you people? Why are you chasing Yao Yuxian? In the distance, before Wang Chong could reply, a warhorse galloped through the rain to stand next to Yao Yuxian and call out to Wang Chong. In the lightning, Wang Chong could clearly see that this was a Hu with an aquiline nose and deep-set eyes. Although he was a Hu, he was different from the others. He had a long and thin face, fair skin and wavy hair, which was extremely rare among the Hu, giving him the air of a scholar. His eyes were slender and long, and when they opened and closed, they gave off the aura of a strategist. This person rode his horse to stand next to Yao Yuxian, giving off the feeling that they complemented each other. Moreover, the two of them were about the same age, instantly giving off the aura of a strategist. Ashina? Huashan. A cold light flashed in Wang Chong's eyes as a thick killing intent surged through them. He recognized this Hu, even though in this world, this fair and clean Hu was still obscure and unknown, and this was his first time meeting him. But in that other world, he had seen him countless times. His name is Ashina now, but in the future, he would have an infamous Han name that would resound throughout the entire divine continent, Shi Siming. In the history of the Empire's rebellion, this person possessed a decisive power. If Yao Yuxian was said to be the greatest rebel flag for the destruction of the Empire on the surface, then the latter was the greatest rebel flag behind the scenes. It was just like how Zhao Jingdian had followed and assisted him for several decades, fighting north and south, becoming his left and right arms. To Yao Yuxian, Ashina, Zhao Gan was the Zhao Jingdian at his side, his left and right arms. These two people were the two biggest banners of the rebellion in the 3 northwestern towns. Encountering Yao Yuxian at Drunken Sparrow restaurant was one thing, but Wang Chong hadn't expected that even Ashina? Dry is also here. The two biggest enemies in his previous life were both standing in front of him. Get lost, Wang Chong said coldly. The current you is not qualified to speak in front of me. You, Ashina? Dry was enraged and wanted to curse, but when he saw Li Sai standing next to Wang Chong, he restrained himself, but his eyes only grew colder. Wang Chong, the Imperial Army might arrive at any moment. Be careful not to let them escape. Li Sai suddenly whispered into Wang Chong's ear. In Drunken Sparrow restaurant, that Hu had already escaped once. In the current situation, if the situation went awry, he might escape again. Moreover, an attack on the capital was no small matter. Although this sudden downpour had been a great help to Wang Chong, the Imperial Army was not dead. Once the Imperial Army arrived, the operation would be over. You don't need to worry about the Imperial Army. Wang Chong's voice was abnormally calm. In order to kill Yao Yuxian, he had gone against the rules of the Wang clan and mobilized all the strength he could muster. For such a large operation, he could not leave behind any future problems. He had already sent word to the Imperial Army. With the connections that Wuxia Steel had established in the Imperial Army and his big uncle's influence, although Wang Chong could not control the Imperial Army, in this sort of downpour, it was completely possible for him to move the Imperial Army to other parts of the capital for 2 hours. As for escaping relax. They won't escape. Wang Chong slowly raised his head, his gaze going past the 60 to 70 Yuzhou soldiers and the rows of courtyards to that tall black silhouette in the distance. Under the gloomy sky, the high walls of the Tang dynasty's capital were like a majestic mountain, connecting the heavens and the earth. This fortress that protected the capital also blocked the retreat of Yaluoshan's group. Other than this place, they had nowhere else to retreat to. The thundering of hooves rang out in their ears. Boom, boom, boom. As they spoke, the walls began to crack and figure after figure rushed out. Although they were a little slow, Wang Chong's subordinates had still managed to catch up. Young master, with a clear eagle's cry, the eagle was the first to arrive from behind Li Sai. He rode his horse to Wang Chong's left and right, flanking Li Sai and protecting Wang Chong. Following him were 10 some muscular men dressed in black and brimming with the aura of bandits. These were the elite leaders of the dragon bandits that Li Sai had subdued in the northwest Chishi Desert. As the elite leaders of the gang, they were stronger and had a far higher status than the average dragon bandits member. Thus, their horses were much better and faster. "My lord," the dozen or so black-clothed men broke through the courtyard wall. Without saying a word, they immediately surrounded Li Silai. Black Dragon Zhao and his dragon bandits traversed the Silk Road. The leaders under their command were all top-class elites of the Northwest, each of them an expert at Tier 8 or 9 of the true martial realm. With these people surrounding Wang Chong's strength soared. And Yaluoshan and the other Yuzhou soldiers instantly had rather unsightly expressions. One Li Sai was already difficult enough for them to deal with, not to mention the addition of more than 10 top-notch experts. "Yaluoshan, I'm afraid that today's matter won't end well. This brat is determined to deal with us. No gentleman can be petty, and no man can be ruthless. No matter where he came from, I'll make the first move. Otherwise, if we delay any longer, we won't have another chance." Next to him, Ashina Kue was stunned. Cui Gon's face suddenly darkened, and he whispered in the Hu language. The enemy's movements were too fast. They had only hesitated for a moment because of that Xian realm expert, and in that short moment, a large number of reinforcements arrived. If they delayed any longer, all of them would die here. But if we do this, we'll also suffer grievous casualties. And Yaluoshan hesitantly said, the youth on the other side was no kind person, and that 2-meter-tall man was even more terrifying. If he could easily deal with him, he wouldn't have waited for Ashina to come. Casualties are already unavoidable. If we hesitate any longer, we'll all die here. Moreover, we don't need to kill them all. Ashina? Cui Gon glanced at Wang Chong and viciously said, "To shoot a man, first shoot the horse. To capture the bandits, first capture the bandit king. That brat might know many experts, but he himself isn't very strong. As long as we capture that brat, the others will be like a group of dragons without a leader." But Ashina? Before Cui Gon, or Sher Siming could finish speaking, he heard the rumbling of hooves. This sound seemed to shatter the world and topple mountains. At the same time, a clear and melodious cry came from the sky. High above the clouds, a massive black eagle was unfurling its wings and fighting in the storm. As it screeched, it circled over the courtyard. In a flash, all the Yuzhou soldiers, including Yaluoshan, paled. Both Yaluoshan and Ashina? Cui Gon had far underestimated Wang Chong's resolve to kill them, and the efficiency of his operation. This was Wang Chong's first operation since obtaining the Wang clan master's approval, and also the first operation since the establishment of Deflecting Blade Manor. And it was also the first time the Wang clan had mobilized all its forces. In this operation, everyone could sense Wang Chong's powerful will and resolve. This resolve, and will urged everyone on this operation, and coupled with the effects of Wang Chong's halo of Dusk Stallion, before Yaluoshan's side could even come up with a plan, Wang Chong's men had already arrived. Boom, boom, boom. One figure after another smashed through the courtyard walls and rushed over through the rain. Wang Chong's men had finally arrived. "Wang Chong, we've come to help you." Marchioness Yi, Bai Siling, Zhao Yadong, Su Gan, Fang Xianying, and the others had all rushed over. Even Su Qiqin, who had always been reluctant, rushed over on her horse. Unlike her appearance in Deflecting Blade Manor, the current Su Qiqin had completely reverted to her female form. Her silky black hair was tied up in a bun and held in place with a hairpin. Amidst her breathtaking beauty, she exuded a clean and refreshing aura. But the most astonishing of all was Su Han's Han. His face was as cold and stern as ever, but his aura was much stronger, even stronger than Wang Chong's. In the training camp, Su Han's Han and Wang Chong had rarely interacted. But this time, when Wang Chong summoned him, Su Han's Han had come without hesitation. I will definitely return what I owe you. Chapter 447. Many thanks. Wang Chong's lips moved, but no sound came out. There were some things that everyone understood and didn't need to be said. Rumble. One group after another charged in, and in a few short moments, 50 to 60 people had gathered at Wang Chong's side. Outside the walls, more people were still gathering. Li Sai, Su Han's Han, Wang Chong, Sun Jiming, Chen Burang, and Yao Yuishan Eshina Quangan. In the sky, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. No one knew that all the influential forces that would influence the future Tang dynasty had gathered here. We finally arrived. As more people arrived in the pouring rain, Wang Chong's killing intent multiplied. He had been waiting for this moment precisely because he had not attacked. Now the time was ripe. Attack! Kill them all! With a clang, Wang Chong unsheathed his Wuxia steel sword and gave the order to attack in the storm. Boom! A massive bolt of lightning flashed over the sky. After a long stalemate, the two groups finally moved. Boom! In a flash of cold light, a powerful saber energy surged into the sky like a waterfall, tearing through the sky and the firmament. The moment Wang Chong gave the order to attack, the invincible great general Li Sai took the initiative to attack. His body shot up like an arrow. Li Sai shot into the air, massive halos vibrating under his feet. In Li Sai's hand, a strange saber taller than a man suddenly swung in a circle, transforming into a heaven-shaking saber that fiercely slashed at Yao Yuishan and the Yuzhou soldiers behind him. In the Northwest campaign, Li Sai had single-handedly routed the entire dragon bandits and killed their leader, Black Dragon Zhao. Now that he attacked again, he immediately displayed a vast and mighty strength that could block 1,000. Bang bang bang. The moment Li Sai leapt into the air, two muscular figures shot out from behind Yao Yuishan like eagles. These two men had thick eyebrows, big eyes, and rough mannerisms. Impressively, they were both brawny men about the same age as Li Sai. Their bodies also contained boundless power. Although it was not comparable to Li Sai's, it was definitely not too far off. Boom! An earth-shattering sound came from the sky. Powerful chi shot out in all directions. The strong wind blew the rainwater in all directions. Even the roof tiles in the distance were lifted up. However, when the mist in the air dissipated, everyone was shocked to find that Li Sai's attack was actually blocked by two people working together. Everyone who saw this scene was stunned. How is this possible? Who are these two people? That even Wang Chong had a look of shock in his eyes. Li Sai was a high-level profound martial expert. Everyone could see just how strong he was. If he weren't so ridiculously strong, deflecting blade manner wouldn't have allowed him to run amok for so long. And it would have been even more impossible for him to ride alone and take back Wang Chong's Hyderabad ore. But the two figures behind Yao Yuishan were actually able to stop him. Cui Qianyu, Tian Qianjin. Upon seeing who these two people were, Wang Chong's eyes instantly turned gloomy. He recognized the two men. One was Ashina. Shu Gan was already shocking enough. Wang Chong had never imagined that these two would also appear at Yao Yuishan's side. I didn't think that this person would even subdue these two. Wang Chong clenched his fists, his eyes flickering with uncertainty. When he had heard the Stone of Destiny's warning, and saw that Li Sai's attack had been blocked by a bolt of lightning, and his own attack had been blocked by the invisible energy of the world, Wang Chong knew that killing Yao Yuishan would not be easy. But Wang Chong had not expected that even Cui Qianyu and Tian Qianjin would appear here. In the history of the empire, these two definitely had a special place. Even though they were in the rebel army, and Yao Yuishan was only at the true martial realm, logically speaking, he should still be a nameless nobody. But Cui Qianyu and Tian Qianjin had long since become famous in the Anong Protectorate. In the future, the two of them would become one of the few imperial great generals in the final days of the empire. Even though they were in the rebel army, Wang Chong had originally believed that Yaoyuan would not meet these two so quickly. But only now did Wang Chong realize that he was gravely mistaken, and Yaoyuan's abilities were probably far more formidable than he had imagined. Although it was his first time entering the capital, but beside him, the future underworld continent chaotic army was already beginning to take shape. The eagle, go and help Li Sai. Wang Chong narrowed his eyes and ordered without hesitation. Cui Qianyu and Tian Qianjun were the two strongest generals at Yaoyuan's side in the future. Although not many people knew of them, many people still looked down on them. However, Wang Chong knew how terrifying these two people would become in the future. In a one-on-one fight, the two of them were at most brigadier generals. But when the two of them worked together, even the Big Dipper Great General Geshu Han, who presided over Shilong and was feared by even the people of Uzan, and the Big Dipper Great General Geshu Han, who stood on the same level as Foman Linta, Gao Xianji, Zhang Shougui, and Zhangqiu Jinxiong, would one day die at the hands of these two. Li Sai had been born with divine strength and astonishing martial prowess, and he was even hailed as the future invincible great general. But it was no wonder that he was unable to deal with these two. But the more this was the case, the more murderous Wang Chong felt. Li Sai the eagle, delay them for me. Everyone else, hear my order. Kill. With these words, Wang Chong galloped forward. Rumble. At almost the same time, the others also galloped forward. Assume formation. Amidst the dense thunder and rain, a mournful voice cut through the night sky. Amidst the thunder, a cold light flashed. The 70 to 80 underworld soldiers did not rush to attack, but formed a formation amidst the rain, forming one of the 5 great defensive formations of the army, the Black Tortoise Formation. In the blink of an eye, the entire Yuzhou army had retracted, forming a black tortoise defensive formation covered in scales and a turtle shell. This sight took everyone by surprise. Wang Chong's eyes flashed like lightning, and he immediately spotted a 28-year-old officer giving orders from the Yuzhou army. This officer had a mustache, a dignified face, and a sharp gaze. In his hands, the 70 Yuzhou soldiers gave off the feeling of the elite of the army. They seemed even more powerful than the Uzan cavalry. Tianqingxi. As Wang Chong swept his gaze over the man's face, his complexion turned even more unsightly. The appearance of Cui Qianyu and Tian Qianjun, two future Yuzhou great generals, was already shocking enough. Wang Chong had not expected to see Tianqingxi here. As a Lulong colonel, he manages his army rigorously. These words were enough to show how extraordinary Tianqingxi was. In Tianqingxi's hands, 300 men could display the might of 3,000. 3,000 could display the might of 30,000. In the Yuzhou army, Tianqingxi was truly the #1 commander. Although he led troops in battle, his strategy was inferior to that of Cui Qianyu and Tian Qianjun. But his ability to command troops far surpassed the two. Under Tianqingxi's command, the strength of a single soldier far surpassed that of Cui Qianyu and Tian Qianjun. Cui Qianyu and Tian Qianjun were already hard enough to deal with, and now, Tianqingxi had appeared as well. Zhao Jingdian. Wang Chong's expression chilled as he immediately bellowed. Boom! In a flash, Wang Chong and the others did not slow down, but the war horses began to change. The war horses quickly gathered together, with Zhao Jingdian in the center and Chen Burang, Chen Jiming, and the other students on the spirit vein on the flanks. They swiftly formed the arrow formation, the best defensive formation on the battlefield. Every student of Deflecting Blade Manor had to pass a test on the art of war before entering, and only by passing an intermediate and high-level test could one enter the spirit vein to cultivate. These students had a more unique understanding of the art of war, and placed more importance on it. Thus, Wang Chong had Zhao Jingdian organize these students to practice the most basic of formations. Although there weren't many of them, it was enough to threaten the Xuanwu formation of the Yuzhou soldiers. Boom! Under Tianqingxi's uneasy gaze, Wang Chong's arrow formation crashed into the Xuanwu formation. In that instant, The heavens shook and the earth trembled. The entire courtyard shook violently. Kail! Kail! A few moments later, the countless experts of Deflecting Blade Manor, the Spirit Vein, and the various clans behind Wang Chong crashed into the Yuzhou soldiers in front of the courtyard. The sounds of fighting, the clashing of weapons, the shaking of halos, and the whistling of the air mixed into one. Body against body, sword against sword, cold light intersected in the rainy night. The battle between the two sides reached its climax in an instant. Kill them all. Wang Chong's eyes glowed with a bloody light. With the Wuxia steel sword in his right hand, and the little Yinyang sword in his left, he thrust it into the body of a Yuzhou soldier. As two Yuzhou soldiers clutched their throats and slowly fell to the ground, a fresh stream of stellar energy poured into Wang Chong's body. After more than a year of repression, Wang Chong had finally released his killing intent. At that moment, the space around Wang Chong twisted, his killing intent tangible, making him seem like a vicious beast. Kill them. Kill them all. Kill them all. After going around in a circle, fate had once more delivered these enemies of the past to him. Whether it was in Yaluoshan or Ashina, or Tianqianjin Chui Qianyu Tianqingxi. Chapter 448. Single-step consecutive slaughter. Without the slightest hesitation, Wang Chong activated the stellar energy iron cloak, and then used the single-step consecutive slaughter. Leaping from his horse, he charged at his foe like a bolt of lightning. Whether it was the 8 steps of the furious flood dragon, or the leaping dragon art, both consumed too much stellar energy at this moment, making the single-step consecutive slaughter much easier and more efficient. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Wang Chong's figure flickered, his Wuxia steel sword gleaming with cold light as it drew cold arcs in the air. In the blink of an eye, one Yuzhou soldier after another fell from their horses. Although Wang Chong was not very strong, he had far more experience and insight than his foe. Unless his foe was equal in strength or stronger, they would find it very difficult to pose a threat to him. Jingdian Martianus E. Zhao Yadong, work with me. Wang Chong's voice resounded through the night, so loud that not even the thunder and rain could drown it out. Rumble! The warhorses transformed, and in the blink of an eye, cavalrymen had gathered from all sides, surrounding Wang Chong. Meanwhile, the white hoof shadow had arrived to catch Wang Chong. Even Tianqingxi, who was in the opposing group, had a slight change in expression at this level of military formation. But before he could do anything, Wang Chong and the others were already charging at Yaluoshan. Nay! The warhorses neighed. Martianus E and Zhao Yadong were both top-class experts of the spear. In a battle on horseback, there was nothing more formidable than the spear in piercing through defense. Rumble! For a moment, men and horses were thrown off their feet, as one Yuzhou soldier after another fell into the muddy water. Kill him! Kill that brat! A flustered and exasperated voice rang out from the crowd. Ashina? Shu Gan unsheathed the sword at his waist, and pointed it at Wang Chong. To shoot a man, first shoot the horse. To capture the bandits, first capture the king. This principle was not only common among the Han, but also among the Hu. So. An ear-piercing whistle rang out. The Hu were skilled in archery. The first wave was not boundless stellar energy, but a dense rain of arrows that blotted out the sky. Boom! The sound of a bow was as loud as thunder. Luo Tong stood in the distance. Before he arrived, the arrow had already arrived. In the blink of an eye, half of the arrows were blocked by Wang Chong. As for the rest of the arrows, they were either blocked by Wang Chong's Gang Qi iron cloak or Wang Chong's armor. Deep Sea Mystic Iron Heavy Armor. Ashina? Shu Gan, who was standing at the back of the crowd, narrowed his eyes. He recognized the armor on Wang Chong at a glance. The Deep Sea Mystic Iron Heavy Armor was definitely an Empire-level strategic resource in the military. It was a sharp weapon to deal with sharpshooter phalanxes. With this thing, sharpshooters were basically no threat to Wang Chong. To dare attack the Anong Protectorate, how audacious! Follow me, let's kill that brat. Ashina? Shu Gan's face was ashen, his heart hardening. In the northeast of Yuzhou, it was enough for one person to oppress them. Once they were out of Yuzhou, he swore that no one would ever be able to ride over his head again. Roar! Ashina? Shu Gan's shout was immediately answered by 10 some people. These people were all elites of Yuzhou, each of them an expert at tier 4 or 5 of the true martial realm. In this aspect, Wang Chong liked to carry out the decapitation strategy. It was exactly the same as Shu Gan and in Yaoyuan. In the Anong Protectorate, the two of them had already perfected this method. It was precisely by relying on this method that the two of them had managed to achieve their current achievements. Rumble. Warhorses galloped, right in Ashina? Shu Gan raised his sword and charged forward. But before he could get very far, the earth suddenly quaked. To his left, the wall collapsed and a large number of cavalry charged in. Young Master Wang, we've come to help you. A familiar voice came from his ear. In a flash, Wang Chong turned in the direction of the voice and immediately saw an azure figure, tall and thin, leading a group of experts as they charged into the ranks of the Yuzhou soldiers. It was Zhang Jian of the Zhang clan, leading several elders and experts of the Zhang clan to provide reinforcements. Wang Chong was overjoyed, and Yao Yuishan, Tian Qingxi, and the other Yuzhou soldiers all paled. But before Yao Yuishan and the others could react, there was a boom as another section of the wall collapsed. But this time, it came from the west. Young Master Chong, we've come to help you. In a flash of light, the head of the Huang clan led a group of elites into the ranks of the Yuzhou soldiers, throwing them off their feet. But it was still far from over. Young Master, don't worry, we've come to help you. Suddenly an old and vigorous voice, like a lion's roar, came from the back of the courtyard. A tall and sturdy figure led a group of experts to break through the courtyard's back, directly barging in. Elder Yi. Wang Chong was overjoyed. The newcomers were none other than his grandfather's old subordinates, Elder Yi, Elder Zhao, and the others. Wang Chong hadn't expected that his summons had alarmed them. Young Master, who do you want to kill? I'll help you. Elder Ye's voice rang out like a great bell, peerlessly domineering. In the courtyard, and Yao Yuishan and the others paled again and again. In such a short time, the other side had managed to mobilize so many people. Those elders with white hair at the temples exuded a tyrannical aura. The aura of a soldier so thick that it could not be increased. If one wasn't a veteran general who had been through hundreds of battles, they definitely wouldn't be able to possess it. Damn it. Just who is this fellow? Now even Ashina, who had been proactively trying to kill Wang Chong this entire time. Lao Gan's expression completely changed. They had originally been on par with Wang Chong in terms of strength, but now that Elder Yi and the others had intervened, the Yuzhou soldiers were in an extremely bad situation. Pull back inwards and fully defend tortoise-shell formation. Hurry! A panicked voice resounded through the rainy night, repeated twice in both Hu and the language of the Tang dynasty. Lulong Lieutenant Tian Qingxi had been a lieutenant for many generations, and his military discipline was unparalleled in the world. In the future, he would be a pivotal existence. But at this moment, he couldn't help but reveal a panicked expression. The power that the other side had summoned was not something that they could deal with. It was a completely overwhelming power. Not only that, but the force that the enemy summoned didn't come from a single direction. Instead, it attacked from 4 directions at the same time. This meant that no matter how strong or how elite the Yuzhou soldiers under their command were, as long as they dared to attack, they would be attacked from 3 different directions. On the battlefield, defeat was assured in such a situation. Rumble. A gigantic, intricate, and complicated great halo of thorns vibrated beneath Elder Ye's feet. The halo was like countless thorns. The halo was black with a hint of gold, giving off an unparalleled sense of power. Roar! A gigantic fist suddenly smashed out, not from Elder Ye's body but from the void. In that instant, Wang Chong could faintly see a gigantic bronze mountain god behind Elder Ye's back. This was the first time Wang Chong had seen Elder Yi in action. Rumble! Countless Yuzhou soldiers were sent flying. Tian Qingxi's tortoise-shell formation was completely unable to block Elder Ye's fist. And at the same time, the cavalry from the other directions also struck like thunder, all of them smashing into the underworld state soldiers. Congratulations, host, for killing 1 Yuzhou traitor, reward 1 destiny point. Congratulations, host, for killing 2 Yuzhou traitor, reward 2 destiny points. Congratulations host, for killing 3 Yuzhou traitor reward. 3 destiny points. Congratulations host, for killing an Yuzhou traitor reward. 7 destiny points. Congratulations host, for killing an Yuzhou traitor reward. 8 destiny points. Congratulations host, for killing an Yuzhou traitor reward. 9 destiny points. Congratulations host, for killing an Yuzhou traitor reward. 13 destiny points. Congratulations host, for killing an Yuzhou traitor reward. 14 destiny points. Congratulations host, for killing an Yuzhou traitor reward. 15 destiny points. At almost the same time, a string of messages poured out of his mind like a waterfall. In a few short moments, 17 Yuzhou soldiers had been killed. Wang Chong had immediately obtained 17 points of destiny energy, and it was still rapidly increasing. In Yaoyuoshan Ashina, Su Gan and Tian Qingxi paled, and even Cui Qianyu and Tian Qianjin, who had been fiercely fighting with Li Sai, paled. If it was just Li Sai, they could just barely hold on. But if these people joined in, let alone hold on, even the 2 of them would probably die here. Stop. Just who are you people? We are the Yuzhou army, people of the Anong Protectorate. Have you made a mistake? The Hu fighting with the Yuzhou soldiers were secondary, but the Han mixed in with them couldn't help but shout. But all these shouts could not surpass a single voice. Commander! The rumbling was like thunder, and even the torrential rain above the courtyard was shaken away, transforming into ripples that spread outward. In the face of this enormous pressure and danger, Cui Qianyu, who was fighting with Li Sai, couldn't help but shout. This voice resounded over the entire capital, and Wang Chong's heart trembled, as if he had thought of something. Hurry, don't worry about the others. Li Sai, Elder Yi, Elder Zhao, Elder Zhang, help me kill him. Wang Chong extended a finger and pointed at the retreating in Yaoyuoshan. And Yaoyuoshan was far more crafty than anyone had imagined. At the start, he had been standing in front of the Yuzhou soldiers, but now that the situation had changed and Wang Chong's side had the upper hand, he had immediately retreated to the rear, into the protection of the Yuzhou soldiers. Young master, I'll take him down for you. An elderly and vigorous voice resounded through the air. Air surged as Elder Zhao soared into the air, transforming into a rainbow of light. Li Sai and Elder Zhang Jian of the Zhang clan also soared into the air, charging toward An Yaoyuoshan, at the back of the crowd. Cui Qianyu, Tian Qianjin, save me. An Yaoyuoshan's face was ashen as he cried out in fear. He was only at the true martial realm, and one Li Sai was enough to make him feel like a needle was pressing against his back. He didn't dare to casually attack, much less 3 people of this level. At this moment, An Yaoyuoshan sensed the thick stench of death, and an intense unwillingness welled up in his heart. All of this was too inexplicable. He hadn't done anything. So why did this person want to kill him? Was he really going to die here today for no apparent reason? No. Gone. Xian. Ah. Just as Li Sai, Elder Zhao, and Elder Yi, the 3 high-level profound realm experts were like eagles swooping down from all directions. In the rainy night in the north, suddenly, a ball of dazzling light like the sun exploded in the air. A vigorous, dignified, aloof aura that made people tremble swept across the entire courtyard, and suddenly appeared in everyone's perception. Stop. Chapter 449. At present, Li Sai could be said to be the person with the highest cultivation level at Wang Chong's side. As the future invincible great general, Li Sai's strength could be easily imagined. But even the high-level profound martial Li Sai, who had once killed Black Dragon Zhao, seemed insignificant in comparison to that vast energy that had appeared out of nowhere. In a flash, Li Sai, Elder Yi, Elder Zhao, Wang Chong, and Marchioness Yi all felt an intense unease. Don't worry about him. Li Sai, Elder Yi, kill An Yaoyuoshan. Wang Chong suddenly bellowed. For this operation, he had mobilized the strength of his entire clan, sparing no expense. And before this, everything seemed to be going smoothly. Although An Yaoyuoshan had successfully escaped from Drunken Sparrow Restaurant, he had never been able to escape. Afterward, he had swiftly surrounded the Yuzhou soldiers. So no matter how much An Yaoyuoshan wanted to escape from Drunken Sparrow Restaurant, it was impossible. But just when this operation was about to succeed, Wang Chong suddenly felt an intense threat. For a moment, Wang Chong suddenly understood. And Yao Yuishan and the Yuzhou soldiers had not attacked just because they were intimidated by Li Sai and Li Sai's strength. While he was stalling for time to wait for the others, and Yao Yuishan and the Yuzhou soldiers were also stalling for time, waiting for something. And now that person had appeared. Whoosh! Li Sai, Senior Yi, and Senior Zhao, 3 cultivators of the Xianwu realm, attacked at the same time. Their qi covered the sky and covered the earth. The 3 had been a little hesitant, but when they heard Wang Chong's voice, they increased their speed and charged at Yao Yuishan. Impudent! A thunderous roar boomed. At first, this voice seemed to come from several dozen li away, but in the blink of an eye, it was already outside the courtyard. Rumble! It was like a war boot had stepped on the ground, causing the entire capital to sway and sway. As the crowd watched, a majestic flood of golden stellar energy suddenly rose from Yao Yuishan's feet. This stellar energy was tyrannical, and also brimming with supreme might. It completely scattered the attacks of Li Sai, Elder Zhao, and Elder Yi. The remaining force of the attack didn't stop there, and it even sent the 3 of them flying. Upon seeing this sight, putting aside Wang Chong, Zhao Jingdian and Martianus Yi, even Li Sai, Elder Zhao and Elder Yi were shocked. Li Sai was in existence who had single-handedly exterminated the dragon bandits. Elder Zhao and Elder Yi were even more meritorious ministers of the older generation. Although they were old and their skills had deteriorated, their strength was still there. No ordinary person could deal with them. He was the only one who could casually send the 3 of them flying with his own strength. To be able to reach this level, he was definitely not an ordinary person. In a flash, countless thoughts flashed through the minds of the 3 of them. But before they had time to think, rumble! A golden figure descended from the sky, appearing in the courtyard. Seeing the golden figure, all of the underworld continent soldiers roared in excitement. Meanwhile, the people on Wang Chong's side were all stunned. Not good. Wang Chong's complexion suddenly turned extremely unsightly. Although he had never seen this person before, from the cheers of the Yuzhou soldiers, Wang Chong had immediately guessed at this person's identity. It was also at this moment that Wang Chong suddenly realized that he had made a massive mistake. From the moment he had heard of Yao Yuishan's name and learned of his whereabouts, his mind had been set on killing this future calamity that would destroy the Central Plains at any cost. Before he could even mature, he would resolve all dangers. But it was also at this moment that Wang Chong realized that he had overlooked someone. Zhang Shogui, the Anong Protector General, one of the supreme great generals of the empire. The only people in Drunken Sparrow restaurant were in Wenjin, and Xiaojia, and the others, so he had always believed that Yao Yuishan had come alone. Even after arriving at this courtyard, and seeing Cui Qianyu and Tian Qianjin, Wang Chong's thoughts had not changed. At most he would add these Yuzhou soldiers to his list of targets. With his own strength and the Wang clans, he could absolutely exterminate them in the capital. But all of this had been wishful thinking on his part. And Yao Yuishan had not come to the capital alone. As a soldier of Yuzhou, Yao Yuishan did not have the courage or the ability to leave his camp and run all the way to the capital. There was only one reason why he had appeared here. The one who had come to the capital was not him, but the Anong Protector General, Zhang Shogui. And he was just a follower. As for why Zhang Shogui had appeared here, Wang Chong recalled the memories of his last life and suddenly understood. Zhangqiu Jinxiong. Zhang Shogui had appeared in the capital because of Zhangqiu Jinxiong. As the Anong Protector General, Zhangqiu Jinxiong had entered the court as a soldier for the first time, becoming the Minister of War, his status even above Zhang Shogui's. This accidental success had also attracted Zhang Shogui's attention. As a fellow Protector General and Great General, Zhang Shogui was superior to Zhangqiu Jinxiong in both talent, achievements, and prestige. If Zhangqiu Jinxiong could enter the court as the Minister of War despite his military background, why couldn't he? Zhang Shogui wants to be Prime Minister. In a daze, Wang Chong understood something. Zhang Shogui wanted to be Prime Minister. Wang Chong knew this, the entire world knew it, and even the Holy Emperor knew it. 20 years ago, Zhang Shogui had dealt a major defeat to Uzun, and had had a chance to be promoted to prime minister. But alas, he had run into his grandfather. In terms of seniority, his grandfather was even more senior than Zhang Shogui, and his prestige in the army was even higher, and his contributions were even greater. At the time, his grandfather had said to the outside world, "Zhang Shogui is still very young. He has just dealt a major defeat to Uzun, and His Majesty has already made him prime minister. In the future, when he goes to Yuzhou and makes even greater contributions, what will His Majesty reward him with?" This conversation had taken place in private in the four quarters courtyard, and because it concerned Zhang Shogui, an imperial great general and prime minister, outsiders had learned of it. But Wang Chong knew that this was not the true reason. But Zhang Shogui had also incurred a grudge against the Wang clan. Anan Protector General Zhangqiu Jianqiong, entering the Bureau of Military Personnel, had also touched Zhang Shogui. Thus, in his last life, not long after Zhangqiu Jianqiong became the Minister of War, Zhang Shogui entered the capital. This had happened in his last life, and in this life, it had clearly happened as well. And it had happened right in front of his eyes. And Yaoyuoshan and these Yuzhou soldiers had clearly entered the capital for this reason. As these thoughts flitted through his mind, Wang Chong's mind instantly became clear. But even though he understood these things, Wang Chong did not relax in the slightest. On the contrary, it only grew heavier. Because Zhang Shogui had clearly come to stop him. "All of you stop. Anyone who dares to move will die." Zhang Shogui held his hands behind him, his voice booming through the heavens. In a flash, Zhao Yadong by Xiling, Su Gan, Chen Burang, Sun Jiming, Fang Xianying. Under the pressure of Zhang Shogui, all of them felt stifled, not daring to move. The fierce battle suddenly fell deathly silent. Whether it was the Yuzhou soldiers or the people on Wang Chong's side, no one dared to move. They were all intimidated by the awe-inspiring prestige of the Anan Protector General. A man's shadow, a tree's wind. In the Central Plains, in the Tang Dynasty, Zhang Shogui's reputation was second only to the Crown Prince's junior guardian, Wang Zhongxi. He was the cornerstone of the empire, and possessed a decisive status. And as Wang Zhongxi withdrew from the palace and gradually left the border, handing over military authority to the Big Dipper Great General Geshu Han, Zhang Shogui seemed to be on the verge of becoming the number one person in the military world. Chapter 450. No one had expected things to develop to this point. Zhao Yadong, Bai Xiling, and the others had not expected that Wang Chong's operation would involve an imperial protector general, and one that wielded real power and influence like Zhang Shogui. This level had already surpassed the bounds of an ordinary personal grudge. This made all of them rather uneasy. And to Wang Chong, Zhang Shogui's existence was like a mountain weighing down on his heart, so heavy that he found it hard to breathe. Killing in Yaoyuoshan in front of a pillar of the empire, like Zhang Shogui, was more difficult than ascending to the heavens. Not even Li Sai and the others were confident in their chances, much less Wang Chong himself. And in Yaoyuoshan's next action caused the last sliver of hope in Wang Chong's heart to vanish into thin air. "Foster father, save me!" And Yaoyuoshan, who had been preparing to break out of the encirclement, suddenly rushed up to this pillar of the empire and kneeled at his feet. And the two words that came out of his mouth made everyone tremble in fear. It was not milord or commander, but foster father. This plump who had been pursued by Wang Chong from Drunken Sparrow restaurant all the way to this remote courtyard, was actually the foster son of the mighty Anong Protector General. Bastard! Wang Chong stared ahead, his eyes so bloodshot that they were about to bleed. From his reincarnation until now, this was the closest he had ever been to completing his mission. And it might also be the only time. This chance would never come again. For this chance, he had mobilized Deflecting Blade Manor, the Spirit Vein Mountain, all the guards of the Wang clan, and all the factions that were on good terms with the Wang clan. Even Elder Yi and Elder Zhao had appeared. He had revealed all the strength of the Wang clan precisely to deal with in Yaoyuoshan. But now, all his plans had failed. The figure in front of him was like a huge mountain range, blocking all possibilities in front of him and blocking all targets behind him. More importantly, Zhang Shogui still had no idea what he was doing. But Wang Chong didn't explain anything. At this moment, Wang Chong's heart was bleeding. Is there really no other way? Wang Chong's eyes were red, and his fingernails dug into his flesh. He didn't even know that he had bitten his lips. There was no future regional commander of the 3 towns, no future king of the Turks, and no future bane of the world. The current in Yaoyuan was just an insignificant nameless soldier. The distance between him and Wang Chong was no more than 200 feet. As for Elder Yi, Elder Zhao, Li Sai, the Eagle, and the head of the Huang clan, each of them could easily destroy him by tens of zhang. As long as they could kill him, they could easily save themselves from the future disaster. But all of this was impossible. Zhang Shoyo had been stationed in the northeast for a very long time, and he was even stronger than Zhangqiu Jianxiong. At such a close distance, no one could kill anyone in front of Zhang Shogui, not even if they all attacked together. Brat, just what is your Wang clan planning? Are you declaring war on me? Zhang Shogui stood in the middle of the courtyard like a god, his clothes flapping in the wind, and his eyes spitting fire, as he locked onto Wang Chong at the front of the crowd. In Yaoyuan Ashina? As newcomers, Sugin and the others were unfamiliar with the great clans of the capital, but Zhang Shogui had almost instantly recognized the insignia on the clothes of the Wang clan guards. Zhang Shogui had even recognized Wang Chong at a glance. Zhang Shogui had already gathered far too much information on the regional commander incident. He had even gathered a large pile of sketches of Wang Chong. But recognizing Wang Chong only made Zhang Shogui even angrier, and the corpses of the Yuzhou soldiers on the ground made him even angrier. He had only entered the palace for a while and met with a few ministers of the court, but his subordinates had almost all been killed. How could Zhang Shogui accept this? Only he could decide the fate of his subordinates. Even if they died, they could only die by his hand. A misunderstanding. This must be a misunderstanding. Lord Zhang, young Master Wang would definitely not have offended General Zhang Jian, and the head of the Huang clan hurriedly protested. The Zhang and Huang clans were currently sharing honor and disgrace with the Wang clan. Seeing that Zhang Shogui was aiming his spear at Wang Chong, the two hurriedly stepped forward to explain. The two had not expected that by following Wang Chong to fight the tiger, a mighty deity like Anong Protector General Zhang Shogui would appear. This matter involved the Anong Protectorate and the Yuzhou soldiers of the empire. This was no small matter. If things were not handled properly, this matter would evolve into a major storm in the imperial court. Silence. With a thunderous roar, Zhang Shogui waved his sleeve with a cold face, his body exploding with a frightening aura. Who do you think you are? Do you think you have the right to speak before me? As his voice resounded through the air, Zhang Tsong and Huang Tong felt stifled. Their mouths opened and closed, but before Zhang Shogui's might, neither of them could say anything. The shadow of a man, the wind of a tree. Although the Zhang and Huang clans were prestigious clans in the capital, they were still quite a distance away from a protector general like Zhang Shogui, who had been through hundreds of battles and had never lost a battle. Moreover, Zhang Shogui was not wrong. Neither the elders of the Zhang clan nor the head of the Huang clan had the right to speak before him. Second brother Yi, third brother Zhao, is this also the will of that person of yours? Zhang Shogui's expression was icy as he turned his gaze to Elder Yi and Elder Zhao. Elder Yi and Elder Zhao were both subordinates of the Wang clan's old master, and the two of them had once held very high positions in the army. Although the two of them had retired for several decades and few people in the younger generation of the army recognized them, Zhang Shogui was an extremely senior imperial great general who had made a name for himself very early on, so he had interacted with the two of them before. Thus, it was simply impossible for the two of them to conceal their identities in front of them. Lord Zhang, this matter has nothing to do with Old Duke. This is entirely the will of young Master Chong alone. Although we don't know why he does this, based on his past conduct, we believe that he definitely has a reason. Elder Yi and Elder Zhao had long ago retreated to Wang Chong's side, forming a triangle around him. In front of the Anong Protector General Zhang Shogui, the two of them had grave expressions and felt an enormous pressure. Zhang Shogui's reputation and status in the world were inferior to that of old Duke, but it wasn't too far off, and he was on the verge of catching up. That was if he could successfully become the Prime Minister of the Empire. The crowd was quiet. The words of Elder Yi and Elder Zhao had placed everyone's attention on Wang Chong. In truth, no one knew why Wang Chong had issued that order. No one knew what sort of grudge Wang Chong had with that who. Brat. So you're saying that this is your own idea? Zhang Shogui coldly sneered as he looked at Wang Chong with disdain in his eyes. Yes. Wang Chong's voice was calm and emotionless. Even in front of this world-renowned protector general, Wang Chong showed no fear. Ha ha ha, foul brat, do you think that I would believe you? Zhang Shogui angrily laughed. So many people had appeared here. So many guards of the Wang clan. Even retired generals like Elder Yi and Elder Zhao. And yet Wang Chong said that this was his own idea. How could Zhang Shogui believe him? All of this made him recall how he had been obstructed by the Wang clan's old master on his path to becoming prime minister, forcing him to bitterly guard the border for 20-some years, eating wind and drinking dew. Zhang Shogui's heart was instantly seething with rage. New grudges and old grudges made the rage in his heart burn brighter and brighter. Everything that had happened in the courtyard made Zhang Shogui unquestionably think of his visit to the capital to seek the position of prime minister. If his headquarters were destroyed and his subordinates were killed while he was away, it would definitely be a hindrance to his bid for the position of prime minister. 20 years ago, he had already been obstructed by the Wang clan. Would the Wang clan jump out again after 20 years? Zhang Shogui's heart burned with rage at this thought. Wang Chong could already tell what Zhang Shogui was thinking from his expression. In his youth, Zhang Shogui had been high-spirited and promising, a true minister of the empire. But in his later years, Zhang Shogui had spent 20 years in Yuzhou. As his status rose, he gradually became more and more autocratic, obstinate and self-opinionated, increasingly unable to listen to the voices of others. Wang Chong was well aware that no matter what he said today, Zhang Shogui would probably not listen. Lord Protector General can choose not to believe me, but every word I say is true. What happened today has nothing to do with Lord Protector General, nothing to do with the Yuzhou army. It is just a grudge between my Wang clan and Yaoyuan. As Wang Chong spoke, he stared at Yaoyuan, who was cowering behind Zhang Shogui. Whether it was his last life or this one, no matter how many reincarnations he had gone through, Yaoyuan's vigilance and cunning would always be the same. What do you mean? Zhang Shogui's expression flickered. He had only just arrived and had no idea what had happened. But Wang Chong's expression did not seem to be faking it. My lord, why don't you first ask your adopted son? Ask him what he did in Drunken Sparrow restaurant this morning. Wang Chong sneered. The future, as well as his foresight, couldn't be revealed. Thus, Wang Chong could only push this matter onto cousin Wang Liang for the time being. Foster father, I've been wrongly accused. This matter has nothing to do with me. Yaoyuan paled and raised his hand to the heavens, his entire body trembling. Chapter 451. Yaoyuan's expression was fearful, and he looked like he was about to cry. No one could lie in front of Zhang Shogui. In the Anong Protectorate, east of Yuzhou, anyone who dared to deceive the Protector General was already a dead man. The Turks had fierce personalities and loved to fight, but in the northeast of the Tang dynasty, whether they were Turks, Shi, Khitans, or Gogurians, everyone paled at the mention of Zhang Shogui and feared him. Yaoyuan and Ashina? Shugon was naturally the same. This was not because of Zhang Shogui's status, but because of the Anong Protectorate army that Zhang Shogui had trained in his thunderous methods. The heavens were high, and the emperor was far away. In the lands of Anong, Zhang Shogui's words were far more effective than the emperor's. Brat, I don't know what you're talking about. Zhang Shogui's complexion clearly improved at Yaoyuan's words. But since Yaoyuan says there's no such thing, then there's definitely no such thing. The capital is at the feet of the Son of Heaven, and you actually brought people to attack my subordinates. If you don't give me a good explanation for this matter, Don't blame me for being impolite." With these final words, Zhang Shogui narrowed his eyes, and his expression turned icy. A tangible killing intent erupted from his body and locked onto Wang Chong. Boom! A massive bolt of lightning flashed through the sky. Zhang Shogui stood beneath it, his entire being like a demon god that had walked out of the underworld, inspiring fear in all who looked at him. The surrounding temperature plummeted. In front of the Anong Protector General, everyone felt as if a mountain was pressing down on them. Wang Chong had clearly angered this imperial great general, and everyone could sense that today's matter would be difficult to resolve. Ha ha ha! Just when everyone was quiet out of fear, a burst of laughter broke the silence. Wang Chong looked at Zhang Shogui, whose mere mention of the name of Zhang Shogui made countless foreign races pale, and he felt no fear, only indignation and frustration. As someone who had lived 2 lives, Wang Chong had long ago become indifferent to life and death. The only thing he cared about was the mission on his shoulders. Zhang Shogui's threat was meaningless to him. "Lord Zhang, do you know these 4 words? What do they mean?" Zhang Shogui looked down from above and coldly said, "Obstinate and conceited." As soon as these 4 words came out, the crowd was in an uproar. By Siling, Zhao Yadong, Martianus Yi, Wei Anfang, and the others all paled. But Cui Qianyu, Tian Qingxi and Ashina, Su Gan, and the rest of the underworld continent people also had a huge change in expression. No one in the Anong Protectorate dared to speak to its commander like this, not a single one. Not to mention a living person, even a dead person would not dare to do so. Wang Chong actually dared to say to Zhang Shogui's face that he was obstinate and self-opinionated. To the people of Yuzhou, such a thing was unthinkable. This kid! How dare you say that in front of the marshal? Even Cui Qianyu and Tian Qianjun could not help but feel a ripple in their hearts at this moment. They didn't know much about the grudge between Wang Chong and Yaoyuan, nor did they want to know. But at this moment, even though they were enemies, they couldn't help but feel a sense of admiration for him. The only person who dared to question the marshal in person, other than the one who held the central divine artifact in the depths of the palace, was probably this young man before him. "Ha ha, kid, did Wang Jiling teach you to say that? Do you dare to say it in front of me again?" Zhang Shogui's eyes flashed with cold light as he laughed in anger. Ever since he had taken command of the army, he had always been a man of his word. Ever since 20 years ago, very few people had dared to speak ill of him to his face. But now, a teenage boy was saying that he was obstinate and self-opinionated. "Young master." Wang Chong, stop. Martianus Yi, Bai Siling, Zhao Yadong, and the others felt their hearts tighten as they hurried to Wang Chong's side and tried to dissuade him, all of them worried. Even though the Anong Protectorate was on the border, extremely far from the capital, but Anong Protector General Zhang Shogui had never lacked for people to discuss him in the capital. Although they rarely saw this imperial great general, they had heard many legends about him. Zhang Shogui had never been a good-tempered person. His methods were tyrannical, and he had never been a genial general. In the empire, Zhang Shogui's methods were fierce and ruthless, and he was definitely second to none. If he were an enemy, Zhang Shogui would definitely make them restless at night and have nightmares every day. For Wang Chong to infuriate him was not a wise move. But Wang Chong waved his hand to stop them. An indescribable aura seeped out of his body, stifling their hearts and rendering them speechless. The current Wang Chong was completely different from the impression they had of him. Although Wang Chong had a temper in the past, he was extremely respectful in front of these people and rarely disobeyed them. Moreover, they were all older than Wang Chong. But at this moment, although Wang Chong's appearance had not changed, his every movement exuded an aura that inspired reverence and might. This was not the aura of a teenage scion of the capital, but it was rather similar to Zhang Shogui's aura. A teenage child, even if he was a little clever, even if he had been born into a clan of ministers and generals, and his horizons far surpassed that of an ordinary person, did not have the right to speak to an imperial great general like Zhang Shogui, much less criticize him for being obstinate and self-opinionated. But a legendary war saint revered by the world in the apocalyptic era of the Central Plains had the right to say such words. Zhang Shogui was not bad. Like any Han, he had a loyal and courageous heart. A patriot who would serve the world and die on the battlefield. This was what he had done for the first half of his life. Whether it was in defeating the Turks, pacifying Yuzhou, subduing the Shi and the Khitans, or suppressing the Goguryeo Empire, Zhang Shogui's abilities and conduct were beyond reproach. However, people would change. The consecutive victories had changed Zhang Shogui. He had become incredibly conceited, and he would not listen to the words of disobedience of others. When Zhang Shogui was presiding over Anong, not even the people closest to him, the old friends and comrades who had fought alongside him for decades, dared to say a single word that would displease Zhang Shogui. Zhang Shogui was so arbitrary that all the decrees of the Anong Protectorate, no matter how big or small, came from him alone. Zhang Shogui had absolute confidence in his own abilities, so much so that he would not listen to any words of advice. Proud soldiers are bound to fall, was a phrase that described Zhang Shogui. When some people lost, they would at most lose a single battle. But when some people lost, the entire world would have to bear the burden of their defeat. Zhang Shogui had been too confident in his own abilities, so he had forgotten that he was also a human, not a god. All humans would make mistakes. The more outstanding Zhang Shogui was, the more skillful he was in leading troops, and the more skilled he was in battle, the more severe the consequences he would cause, the greater the calamity he would leave behind for the empire. Later on, countless people had analyzed that rebellion of the Tang dynasty, which had affected the entire world. Almost all of the generals of the rebel army had come from Zhang Shogui's army. Tian Qingxi was strict in managing his army, and his skill at leading troops was unparalleled in the world. His soldiers obeyed orders, were swift and composed, and could carry them out to a frightening level. In terms of military accomplishment, the rebel army led by Tian Qingxi far surpassed the official army of the Tang dynasty. However, even though the Tian clan had been Lulong commandants for generations, they did not have this sort of ability. Tian Qingxi's skill at leading troops had come from Zhang Shogui. Cui Qianyu and Tian Qianzhen were not only skilled in martial arts, they were also skillful in leading troops, both brave and astute. Separated, the two of them could hold their own, and together, they could even defeat the Big Dipper Great General Geshu Han, who had subdued Uzan. If Gao Xianji and Feng Chongqing of the Anqi Protectorate could be called the twin walls of the empire, then Cui Qianyu and Tian Qianzhen were no less than the twin stars of the rebel army. It was just that the two of them had disobeyed the world, so no matter how talented they were, they could not be recorded in the annals of history. There was also the rebel army Great General Cui Shida, who was known as the Lightning Cavalry, and whose ability to lead cavalry was unparalleled in the world. In terms of ability to lead cavalry, although Sun Jiming was also known as the General of Surprise Assaults, compared to the rebel army Great General Cui Shida, Sun Jiming was like comparing a fluorescent light to the bright moon. The two were on completely different levels, and whether it was Cui Qianyu, Tian Qianzhen, or Kai Shida, all of them had been promoted by Zhang Shogui, and their ability to lead troops, strategize, and tactics had all been taught by Anqi Protector General Zhang Shogui, and each of them was able to bring out their unique traits to the extreme. This was like a strengthened version of Zhang Shogui with 3 heads and 6 arms. This sort of Zhang Shogui was not someone that could be underestimated. Zhang Shogui knew how to use people, and he only asked about their abilities, not their backgrounds. As long as they had the ability, he could use them all. So in Yaoyuishan and Ashina, Ma Gan had committed a crime in Yuzhou and should have been executed. But Zhang Shogui had taken a liking to their talents and taken them into the Anong Protectorate. And in Yaoyuishan, influenced by what he saw and heard, had learned all of Zhang Shogui's methods. Thus, in the rebel army, there were not only high-ranking officers, but also Han. Thus, the rebel army was able to cause so much damage. It could be said that the rebel army commanders who would cause trouble for the world in the future were all good students of Zhang Shogui's. Even the invincible rebel army of Yuzhou had been trained by Zhang Shogui. That civil strife that would engulf the world in the future shake the foundation of the Tang dynasty, and plunge the Central Plains into eternal damnation, had been caused by Yaluoshan and Ashina. Ma Gan had been raised by the two of them. But in the end, the source of all this was Zhang Shogui, the person standing before him. It was he who had single-handedly caused the collapse and destruction of the Tang dynasty. Zhang Shogui had been too outstanding, but this excellence had not brought benefit to the world. On the contrary, it had led to the destruction of an empire. This was truly a case of losing one's integrity in old age. Wang Chong had once thought that if someone could remind Zhang Shogui, point out his mistakes from the side, tell him that he was a man and not a god, he would also make mistakes. Then perhaps everything would have been completely different. Alas, the Wang Chong of the past had not had the right, the strength, or the chance to stand before the Anong Protector General, much less speak to him. Now that everything had started over, he had finally obtained a chance. Even if Zhang Shogui wouldn't listen, he still had to say it. Has Lord Zhang heard of the farmer and the snake? Wang Chong sternly said. Are you trying to say that you're that snake? Zhang Shogui sneered. If not for the fact that Wang Chong was Wang Jiuling's grandson, Zhang Shogui would have never spoken so much to him. I just want to tell my lord that farmers can also make mistakes. Chapter 452. Brat, you're too impudent. Zhang Shogui's calm eyes suddenly exploded with a cold light. The surrounding Yuzhou soldiers stared at Wang Chong, all of them dumbfounded by his actions. In the northeast, no one dared to speak to their commander in such a manner. Wang Chong seemed to be referring to some farmer, but he was actually referring to their commander. The first time, he had accused their commander of being obstinate and self-opinionated, and the second time, he had said that even the commander can make mistakes. In the world, there was probably no one else besides this fellow who dared to speak to their commander in such a manner. If he didn't know their commander's identity, his actions would have been understandable. But he clearly knew his commander's identity and still did so. This was simply audacious. This fellow, he really dares to say anything. At this moment, even Cui Qianyu and Tian Qianjin opened their eyes wide, as if they were seeing this youth for the first time. Originally, out of consideration for your father and grandfather, I didn't want to attack you. But now, it seems that if I don't teach you a lesson, you really won't know the immensity of the heavens and the earth. Zhang Shogui's face was grim. Wang Chong's actions had already violated the taboo in his heart. Boom! With a flick of his sleeve, Zhang Shogui extended a powerful palm covered in veins. His 5 fingers lightly clasped together as he clawed at Wang Chong. Boom! Golden light exploded and fierce winds howled. An enormous attractive force immediately engulfed Wang Chong. And like a paper kite, Wang Chong was instantly pulled into Zhang Shogui's hand. Not good. Wang Chong was alarmed. He had always believed that his foundation was deep and sturdy, and his cultivation was extremely stable. But in front of Zhang Shogui, he was nothing, as lowly as an ant. With the pull of those 5 fingers, Wang Chong felt the air around him turn into a massive wave, sucking him away like a leaf of duckweed. Hurry and save the young master. Not good. On the other side, Elder Yi and Elder Zhao also paled in fright. Zhang Shogui's face was green, a clear sign that he had been angered. The two of them had heard rumors of the Anong Protector General's style. If the young master really fell into his hands, he would definitely not have a good ending. Bang! Taking advantage of the powerful distance between them and Wang Chong, Elder Yi and Elder Zhao's broad and powerful palms, one on the left and one on the right, in a flash, the moment Wang Chong was sent flying, they suddenly grabbed his ankle, pulled him back and fixed him in the air. Let him go. Almost at the same time, the sky was filled with dragon roars. Li Sai held the huge Wuxia steel saber on his back, and suddenly, a majestic white saber aura soared into the sky. This blade cut through the void, cut through the dark clouds, and cut through the endless starry sky. Rumble! Li Sai's saber was several dozen zhang long, transforming into a massive storm of saber energy that caused the heavens to pale as it slashed down at Zhang Shogui. Good saber technique, Zhang Shogui's eyes flashed. The elegance of Li Sai's saber had even made him raise his eyebrows in surprise. But your cultivation is too low. It's still not enough. Standing still, Zhang Shogui pushed his right hand out. Boom! In a flash of golden light, a massive golden palm, 100 zhang away from Zhang Shogui, loomed over him like a mountain. Rumble! Li Sai's saber chi slashed down from the sky and collided with the huge golden palm that was over 100 meters tall. Instantly, it was as if it had collided with a shapeless mountain, and it suddenly stopped. Not only that, but the rebounding force of the giant golden hand even shattered Li Sai's indestructible saber chi storm. Li Sai's expression froze, his eyes going wide. This attack had gathered all the energy in his body, making it practically his strongest attack. Back then, he had gone alone to the northwest and even killed Black Dragon Zhao. But a casual push from Zhang Shogui had shattered his saber into pieces. However, before Li Sai could think further, in the next moment, the giant golden hand suddenly transformed into a golden storm of stellar energy and bounced back, crashing into Li Sai. Ah! With a scream, Li Sai's body trembled as he was sent flying like a ragged kite. Li Sai was still far from reaching his peak. The future invincible great general was still far from meeting the current titan of the empire. It's your turn now. A callous voice resounded in the ears of the crowd. No one had seen how this protector general had vanished, only that when they next saw him, he was only several zhang away from Elder Yi and Elder Zhao. Boom! The most gentle and genial air instantly transformed into the fiercest storm. Elder Yi and Elder Zhao, one half a step into the imperial martial realm, and the other at the peak of the profound martial realm, had been generals who had followed Wang Chang's grandfather on the northern expedition. But in the face of Zhang Shogui, who was at the zenith of his power, they instantly screamed as the powerful streams of air exploded from Zhang Shogui's body, sending them flying along with Wang Chong. During this entire process, Zhang Shogui still had his hands behind his back, making no obvious movements. Every era had its own mark. In the era of Wang Chang's grandfather's fame, Zhang Shogui might have still been an obscure soldier, but now that Duke Jiu had retired, it was the era of Wang Zhongxi and Zhang Shogui. On the other hand, Wang Zhongxi was modest and aloof from worldly affairs. As a result, Zhang Shogui, who had to submit to him, became the most influential and authoritative imperial great general of the Great Tang Empire's Han generals. Right now, Zhang Shogui possessed a unique weight in the empire. The only thing he lacked was probably the merit of assisting the dragon, and the most profound of qualifications. This was also why he had always been lower than Wang Chang's grandfather, and the Yao clan's old master in the imperial court. Buzz! Zhang Shogui's expression was cold and callous. With a wave of his hand, he easily sent Elder Yi, Elder Zhao, and the others flying. Then, he raised his palm and grabbed at Wang Chong. Brat, it's your turn! Zhang Shogui's expression was cold as his 5 fingers clenched together. As he sent Elder Yi and Elder Zhao flying, he immediately grabbed at Wang Chong. The path of stellar energy, the path of yin and yang, the body of hard and soft. Great generals like Zhang Shogui had long ago cultivated all of these to perfection. Sending Li Sai flying with a wave of his hand, and sending Yi and Zhao flying was just a warm-up for him. He didn't use his true abilities at all. Bang! To his surprise, the moment Zhang Shogui's fingers clenched, he grabbed nothing but air. The figure in front of him blurred, and Wang Chong had already disappeared. This is... Koi follows the waves. Zhang Shogui's expression flickered as he saw that figure escape the range of his pull. For the first time, a look of surprise appeared in his eyes. Koi follows the waves was not a martial art, but a technique. A martial artist of a lower cultivation would find it very difficult to escape from a martial artist of a higher cultivation. But Koi follows the waves was different. The Koi followed the waves up and down. As long as it followed the direction of the current, it could freely pass through any massive wave. More importantly, the Koi did not follow the waves because it was being pulled by them. It could freely control its movements and not be restrained. It could even follow the waves and jump out of the water, leaping out of the waves and completely escaping the current. Koi follows the waves was precisely this sort of technique. If one could not resist the pull of one's opponent, Then one could move along the stellar energy and finally leap out. And on a higher level, in martial arts, it was not just a technique to resist a simple pull. In a battle between high-level experts, one could follow the flow of one's opponent's stellar energy, find out the rules, and then take advantage of the situation to penetrate deeper and defeat the opponent in a single blow. In the world of martial arts, the weak only used this sort of technique to fight against experts of a higher cultivation level. On the contrary, it was used more often against top-class experts of the same cultivation level. But whether it was the former or the latter, this sort of technique required an extremely high level of skill. Not only did one have to understand the flow, nature, and variations of one's opponent's stellar energy, like the back of one's hand, one also had to have a very high cultivation level. If the opponent was of the same cultivation level as him, there was a sliver of a chance. But Wang Chong was only an insignificant true martial realm martial artist. Not even at the profound martial realm. It was practically impossible to successfully use koi follows the waves. And when one considered the gap between the two of them, this sort of situation was simply inconceivable. "Brat, get down here." Zhang Shougui's expression chilled. He was finally enraged. But before he could attack, a roar resounded through the sky. "Everyone ignore me! Attack and kill in Yaoyuan." Zhang Shougui was obstinate and wouldn't listen to anything Wang Chong said. The only person Wang Chong cared about right now was in Yaoyuan. Zhang Shougui believed that this operation would be over once he was captured. But he was wrong. As long as he could kill in Yaoyuan, Wang Chong didn't care what price he had to pay. As for himself, Wang Chong no longer cared. No matter who it was that appeared, Wang Chong would not give up this opportunity so easily. "Elder Zhang, Uncle Huang, don't worry about me. Kill him." Wang Chong's voice resounded through the sky. This mournful cry was like a signal, once again rousing the people in all directions. No one wanted to deal with the empire's protector general, but there was no doubt that none of them wished for Wang Chong to die here, or be taken away by Zhang Shougui. Chapter 453. Boom! In a few short moments, everyone began to move. No one knew what Wang Chong was truly thinking, nor did they know that Wang Chong was truly prepared to die. But everyone had clearly mistaken Wang Chong's order for something else. Besiege Wei to rescue Zhao. Twang! With the twang of a bow, the first to strike was not the elders of the Zhang clan, nor was it the head of the Huang clan, but the distant master archer Luo Tong. He might not have been so bold as to attack the Anong protector general Zhang Shougui, but dealing with the Turks in Yaoyuan was no problem at all. Twang twang twang. In an instant, countless arrows pierced through the rain and descended upon in Yaoyuan. At almost the same time, the archers under Luo Tong's control fired their arrows. The dense rain of arrows tore through the air, their screeching enough to shatter the winds. In the face of this rain of arrows, in Yaoyuan instantly paled. He had not expected Wang Chong to be so bold. The protector general was already here, but he still dared to attack in front of the protector general. And in Yaoyuan still had to face far more than this. Strike! With a furious roar, the elders of the Zhang clan and the head of the Huang clan, though half a step behind, also attacked. These people had far higher cultivation levels than the others, and their chi roiled like a storm. Their stellar energy exploded, and their halos boomed. Torrents of stellar energy clattered against each other, filling the sky with a mountain-toppling momentum as they rumbled toward in Yaoyuan. The dense crowd did not give in Yaoyuan the slightest sense of security. Listen to young master. Kill in Yaoyuan. At almost the same time, Zhao Jingdian, Chen Burang, Sun Jiming, Martianus E, Huang Qianer, Zhao Yadong, and Bai Siling once more began to attack the Yuzhou soldiers in an attempt to hold them back. The battle that should have been over now began once more. The Yuzhou soldiers had clearly not expected this, and they instantly fell into chaos. Stop them! Protect Yaoyuan! Chui Qianyu and Tian Qianjin were the first to react. However, before the two of them could do anything to stop it, a majestic saber chi whistled through the air and blocked the two of them. Although he was a little slow, Li Sai's injuries were not as serious as he had imagined. The dark steel heavy armor that Wang Chong had forged for him, using the meteoric metal, had played a key role. Impudent! Zhang Shogui was instantly enraged by this sight. He was the Anong Protector General, and with a stomp of his foot in the military, he could shake the entire army. He was the undisputed leader of the army. Not even great generals like Fomin Linta dared to act so impudently in front of him. But these people clearly knew that he was here and still dared to attack in Yaoyuan, treating him like he was nothing. This was no longer a question of whether to kill in Yaoyuan or not. It was an affront to him, the Imperial Protector General. Bang! Zhang Shogui suddenly stomped down. A golden light emerged from the ground, transforming into an oval golden barrier that enveloped in Yaoyuan. Bum bum bum. All the arrows and attacks collided with the oval golden shield, and were all blocked. Not only that, but in the next moment, a terrifying aura suddenly erupted from the depths of the ground. Rumble! The earth quaked and the heavens shattered. No one could describe the power of this energy. In everyone's perception, the entire ground became undulating waves, as if it had come to life. A powerful repulsive force erupted, wanting to fling everyone off their bodies. No, it wasn't just a thought, it was really throwing them off. The experts of the Deflecting Blade Manor, the Spirit Vein, the Wang clan, and the other great clans were sent flying by that powerful aura like raindrops. As for those in the innermost circle, the elders of the Zhang clan, the head of the Huang clan, Zhao Jingdian, Huang Qian'er, Zhao Yadong, by Xiling. These people were the closest to an Yaoyuan and the Yuzhou group, so they were the most heavily injured. Screams filled the air as their chests caved in, and they were sent flying like wheat being cut down. Blood rained down from their mouths. Zhang Shogui was furious, so he had dealt the heaviest blows to these people. If not for the fact that he valued the status of these scions of the great clans a little more, and that it was a little beneath his status to deal with these juniors, Zhang Shogui would have long ago killed them. Too powerful. The combined attacks of several hundred people had collapsed in an instant. At this moment, everyone could sense Zhang Shogui's terrifying strength. In front of a legendary figure of the empire like Zhang Shogui, the strength of these people was far too minuscule. The difference in strength between the two sides could not be calculated with reason. Although they had long since known about this gap, only when they experienced it for themselves did they understand just how great it was. It was a difference between the heavens and the earth. Anyone who tried to resist Zhang Shogui would deeply understand what true despair was. A single barrier of light had made in Yaoyuan as stable as Mount Tai. No matter how many people there were or what level they were, they could not injure in Yaoyuan. And with just one step, not only had the several hundred people present failed, they had all been injured. And this was not even Zhang Shogui's true strength. He probably hadn't even used 10% of his strength. This was no longer something that could be described with just the word powerful. If anyone dares to attack again, I will have the members of your clans banished to the army, sent to the northeast, and sent to Goguryeo. Zhang Shogui's face was ashen, his expression as cold as ice. With the imperial censors in the capital, not even Zhang Shogui dared to act recklessly. In Emperor Taizong's era, So Yong-sun had achieved so much that he had been impeached by the imperial censors. Later, in Gaozong's era, the prime minister had misspoken, and had also been impeached by the imperial censors. In the current dynasty, people of virtue and prestige, such as Wang Chong's grandfather, or Wang Zhongxi, who had been adopted by the imperial censors as a child and hailed as the new war god, had still been impeached by the imperial censors, forced to relinquish his military authority, and return to the palace to become the leisurely junior guardian of the crown prince. Although Zhang Shogui had always thought highly of himself, and even looked down on the imperial censors in the capital, he still had to have some scruples, so he could not act recklessly. However, if anyone thought that he could do nothing to these scions of the great clans, they would be gravely mistaken. Just because he could not kill them, did not mean that he could not do anything. With his status as Imperial Protector General, a single order from him could have these scions of noble birth banished to the army, and sent to Yuzhou in the northeast. Once he got there, life and death would be up to him. As expected, The moment Zhang Shogui spoke, the entire courtyard fell silent. Everyone felt a chill in their hearts, and fear appeared in their eyes. Everyone in the empire now knew that the fiercest fighting in the northeast was not the Shi or the Khitans, nor was it the eastern and western Turkic Khaganates. It was Yun Gaesaman of Goguryeo in the east. Goguryeo had never been much of a threat to the Tang dynasty, until some Yun Gaesaman appeared there. Under his rule, Goguryeo rose swiftly and became a powerful nation. Although it was a tiny place, it had absorbed the strength of China, including the art of war, strategy, and martial arts. At the same time, it had used its own unique traits. This allowed the tiny Goguryeo to become an existence on par with Uzan and the eastern and western Turkic Khaganates. Even though it didn't have many soldiers, its fighting prowess was above that of the Mengshi Zhao Empire. Yun Gaisuan strengthened his defenses and built a large number of fortified cities. Even with Zhang Shogui's abilities, he could only suppress the Goguryeo Empire and make it difficult for them to come out. And the enormous price one would have to pay to attack the Goguryeo Empire forced even someone as decisive as Zhang Shogui to give up on the idea of attacking the Goguryeo Empire. From this, one could easily imagine how fierce the Goguryeo Empire's resistance was. It was easy to imagine how high the death rate of the battles there was. If he was sent there, he would definitely die. However, before they could think too much about it, they heard a scream in the next moment. Ah! Under everyone's watchful eyes, a woozy steel sword flew out of Ashina's hand. Thoracic thorns puncture the chest, the back puncture. Ashina? Thoracic thorns vomited blood, and his lips moved, but not a single word came out. His eyes were wide open as he stared in a daze at the eagle. Even in death, he still couldn't understand why the eagle had not gone to deal with Yaoyuan, but had chosen to kill him, a stranger. Impossible, this is impossible. Ashina? Thoracic Thorn's mind was blank. He had come to save Yaoyuan. These people had come to deal with Yaoyuan, not him. Ashina? Thoracic Thorns had always had this impression and thought in his mind. So in this battle, he had been standing on the outside. And the appearance of his commander had made him feel more and more that this battle was already over. So he had not even considered himself. Ashina? Thoracic Thorns had not expected that in the end, while Yaoyuan had not died, the person to kill would be him. Success! The eagle didn't know why Wang Chong had wanted him to kill that young who standing on the outside, but his long relationship with Wang Chong had given him a thorough understanding of Wang Chong's intentions. The gesture Wang Chong had made was for that Hu, and even the woozy steel sword in his hand had been given to him by that Hu. Since Wang Chong wanted him dead, that Hu assuredly had a reason to die. Swish! That the sword was pulled out and blood spurted out. The eagle's strike had succeeded, and he immediately retreated. The eagle had reacted very quickly, but he was still much too slow. You're seeking death. A golden bolt of stellar energy flew out, and before the eagle could even dodge, he was sent flying like a shooting star. Zhang Shogui's face was ashen and unsightly, but none of this could change Ashina. Dry fate. Although his martial arts were unparalleled, he was still a man, not a god. How could he have predicted that the eagle would attack Ashina, who seemed to be completely unrelated and insignificant? Do it. He could defend against the attacks of 200 people against Yaoyuan, but he couldn't defend against the eagle against Ashina? Kyuchi's attack. The blind spots in one's thinking were the hardest to defend against. No. Become Ashina? The moment Shugon's corpse toppled to the ground and Yaoyuan, trapped in the golden barrier, opened his eyes wide and let out a heart-rending howl. His eyes were blood-red, like an injured wild beast. From Drunken Sparrow Restaurant to here, and Yaoyuan's eyes had never once turned red from the pursuit. But to be Ashina? The moment Sugan collapsed, and Yaoyuan seemed to have suffered a heavy blow, his entire body losing control. Congratulations to the host for successfully killing Ashina. For changing a major historical fact, reward 200 points of destiny energy. Almost to Ashina? The moment Sugan collapsed, the Stone of Destiny's voice rang out in Wang Chong's mind. Ashina. Shugon was dead. The future Sure Siming would no longer exist. At this moment, of the twin pillars of Yozhou's rebel army in the history of the Tang dynasty, only Yaoyuan remained. Chapter 454. In the future rebel army, Siming would play an extremely important role. As in Yaoyuan's left and right arms, he had helped resolve many of his problems. Without him, Yaoyuan would never have been able to rise so quickly, and Yaoyuan could not be killed, at least not for the time being. As the future leader of the rebel army, Yaoyuan was protected by fate. That inexplicable barrier made of the energy of the world was enough to explain the problem. And Zhang Shogui would never let Wang Chong succeed. Only Ashina? Whether it was Zhang Shogui and Yaoyuan, or even the people on his side, if Wang Chong wanted to kill Hasugan, no one would be able to think of it. But in order to avoid the same fate as in Yaoyuan, Wang Chong had borrowed the hand of the eagle to kill Hasugan. Damn it! Zhang Shogui's furious voice resounded in his ears. Without even turning his head, Wang Chong knew that Zhang Shogui's complexion was extremely unsightly. But Wang Chong no longer cared. There would come a day when Zhang Shogui would know that Wang Chong was not humiliating him, but helping him. It's over. Wang Chong raised his head, his gaze sweeping over the dark clouds overhead. The rain was still pouring down, and amidst the dark clouds and lightning, a mass of the eagle unfurled its wings and let out a clear cry as it circled in the sky. A red ribbon of silk fluttered around the eagle's leg, an extremely eye-catching sight. Boom! In a dazzling golden light, a wave of golden stellar energy soared into the sky, grabbing at the crowd. An enormous attractive force pulled at them like invisible threads. Ah! Zhao Jingdian by Siling Su Gan, Huang Qin'er, Zhao Yadong, the eagle Wang Chong, Duke of Yi, Elder Zhao, and Li Sai. All 200 people were instantly dragged off the ground by a terrifying energy, flying like ragdolls toward Zhang Shogui. Zhang Shogui was enraged. Ashina? Shu Gan's death had thoroughly aroused the Imperial Protector General's killing intent. In that instant, everyone felt a sense of terror that came from the bottom of their hearts. This was Zhang Shogui's true strength. When he was enraged, whether it was Li Sai, Elder Yi, Elder Zhao, or anyone else, even all of them added together, they were insignificant before him. Reckless fools, you're too presumptuous. Since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. Zhang Shogui's cold voice resounded through the heavens. What imperial censor? What dignity? None of that mattered anymore. Become Ashina? The moment Shu Gan was killed in front of him, Zhang Shogui felt an indescribable rage burn in his heart. The imperial censor's impeachment could not be ignored, but in comparison, the anger in his heart needed to be vented even more. There was no longer a need for these people to exist. Buzz! A ball of golden light burned like a raging flame. The terrifying light shot into the sky, illuminating the entire world in a golden color. In front of this storm-like aura, everyone was as insignificant as a speck of dust. Lord Protector General, please stop. Just when Zhang Shogui was prepared to deal the killing blow, a black silhouette shot out like an arrow into the densest part of the golden light. Bang! Bang! Two massive booms. The black silhouette had left as quickly as it had arrived, retreating from the depths of the golden light in a flash. But on the other side, the golden light that filled the sky with the power of destruction also disappeared without a trace. Plap plap plap. Those people that had been pulled up by the golden light and thrown into the air toward Zhang Shogui began to plummet back down into the rain. But the crowd was deathly still, no one saying a word. It's you? Upon seeing that black silhouette, Zhang Shogui took in a deep breath and fell silent. Lord Zhang, it's been a long time. The old steward's hands were hidden in his sleeves, his beard trembling. Although his breathing was in disorder, his feet were firmly planted on the ground. The courtyard was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. In all directions, the crowd had long been watching. Zhang Shogui was the Protector General of the Empire, so powerful that not even Li Sai, Duke of Yi, Elder Zhao, the elders of the Zhang clan, and the patriarch of the Huang clan combined would be a match for him. But no one had expected that the old butler would be able to force Zhang Shogui to stop after crashing into his protective golden light. Even Wang Chong was a little dazed. He had seen the old steward in action before, and he was also the person who had interacted with him the most. But Wang Chong had not expected the old steward to be able to stop Zhang Shogui in a direct confrontation. I didn't think that he would be this strong. Wang Chong's gaze flickered as he looked at the old steward standing nearby, exuding an unfathomable aura. The old steward was very strong. Wang Chong had known this a long time ago. Even when he had been idling and stubborn, Wang Chong had already developed this impression of this old steward, who served at the King of Song's side. But Wang Chong had never known just how deep his foundation was. He seemed to be very powerful, but he never revealed his true strength. In his last battle, he had only managed to defeat the fleeing King Sojurim, and it seemed like he hadn't even used his full strength. Thus, it was impossible to determine the strength of an expert. But Wang Chong had not expected the old steward to be so strong that he could fight against Zhang Shogui. This was no longer just strength, but ridiculously strength. Buzz! After a momentary daze, Wang Chong quickly came back to his senses. Of all the people present, he was probably the least surprised by the old steward's appearance. With a wave of his sleeve, Wang Chong quickly turned around and walked to the other side. Since the old steward had appeared, this battle could no longer continue. Everything was over. How is it? Wang Chong walked over and stopped at the eagle's side. The eagle lay motionless in the rain and mud. Hearing Wang Chong's voice, he suddenly tore off his mask, revealing a pale face and a faint trickle of blood at the corner of his lips. I'm fine. This armor truly is very strong. If you hadn't told me before, and if I hadn't dodged in advance, I would have been dead by now. The eagle said, his elbow propped up on his back as he panted. The meteoric metal was extremely tough, and it was also famous for being difficult to forge. For this reason, Wang Chong had only secretly forged a few sets, one for Li Sai, one for the eagle, and one for Wang Chong. Li Sai was something that Wang Chong had conceived long ago. His strength was of utmost importance to Wang Chong. As for the eagle, his control over the information channels, and the ability to quickly communicate with and transmit information, were extremely important to Wang Chong. He was essentially a hub for information. The eagle could not die now. Thus, the second set of meteoric metal armor had been given to him. It was precisely because of this that Wang Chong dared to have the eagle assassinate Ashina. Ashina's mission. Sometimes, a difference of a hair could lead to a difference of 1,000 years. Not even Zhang Shogui could have imagined that the eagle was wearing an incomparably tough armor, forged from meteoric metal. It's fine as long as you're fine. Here's a pill for you. Take it to protect your organs. Seeing that the eagle was fine, Wang Chong felt as if a great weight had been lifted from his heart. Propping his hands on his back, he slowly sat down and motionless. On the other end, the eagle gazed at Wang Chong's silhouette, a hint of worry in his eyes. But he said nothing. His gaze quickly turned to the old butler. On the other end, the old butler and Zhang Shogui's conversation had reached a crucial point. Old butler, do you also want to oppose me? Zhang Shogui's expression was cold and unsightly. Lord Protector General is too serious. What sort of status does this old man have? How could he possibly compare to Lord Protector General? This old man was only entrusted by His Highness the King of Song to invite Lord Protector General to the King of Song's residence. The old butler folded his hands in his sleeves and faintly smiled. Zhang Shogui stared at the old butler, his eyes flickering with uncertainty. This old butler had served 2 generations of the King of Song, and Zhang Shogui had already met him during the reign of the king. In the last few decades, he had clearly gotten even stronger. Old butler, is His Highness the King of Song worth it for the sake of a few juniors? Zhang Shogui stared at the old butler. He had said that the King of Song was treating, but Zhang Shogui knew that this was just an excuse. To put it bluntly, it was all for these fellows. Lord Protector General also said that it's just a few juniors. Lord Protector General is the cornerstone of the empire, with an exalted status. Why should you lower yourself to the level of a few juniors? The old butler indifferently said, his lips moving. Moreover, in the end, it's just a few who that died. For the sake of a few who, Is Lord Protector General really going to stir up a storm in the city? Is it worth it? The old butler glanced at the corpses on the ground. Zhang Shougui's expression froze, and the anger in his eyes abruptly dissipated. No matter what sort of goal the old butler had, there was one thing he was right about. The people who had died were all insignificant who. Wuxia didn't have much of anything, but it had the most who. And while he was presiding over Anong, he had killed a mountain of who. In just a few large-scale battles, he had dealt with the who. Thus, Zhang Shougui cared about the who the most, but he also cared about them the least. He cared about the abilities they possessed, but he did not care about their lives. As for Ashina, in the future, the name Shi Siming would resound like thunder through the world, occupying an extremely important position. But at this moment, these three words were clearly meaningless to Zhang Shougui. Zhang Shougui had killed countless people, so he naturally wouldn't care about a single who. And if I say no? To Zhang Shougui's surprise, Zhang Shougui suddenly sneered and said something completely unexpected. The king of Song was of the imperial clan's bloodline, an imperial prince, and he held an extremely important position in the army. Zhang Shougui had to give him some face, but if he were to admit defeat like this, he would be showing off too much of a weakness. Zhang Shougui's current status had already surpassed the so-called bloodline shackles. Although he was still not on the level of the king of Song, he wasn't too far off. Zhang Yuanbao, are you still brooding over the matters of the past? Suddenly, an elderly voice, mellow and dignified and wise, resounded in everyone's mind. This voice was neither loud nor soft, like the ravings of a listener. But when Zhang Shougui heard this voice, his body trembled and his face paled. Yuanbao was his courtesy name. In this era where everyone called him Protector General, Milord, Commander, very few people knew of his courtesy name, and almost no one had the right to call him Zhang Yuanbao. Courtesy name was not something that could be casually called. Only a senior could call a junior by his courtesy name. But Zhang Shougui was already in his 50s, and he had a high status and authority. Zhang Yuanbao was not something that just anyone could casually call him. But Zhang Shougui knew that there was one person in the capital who just so happened to be called by this title. Wang Jiling, the previous virtuous minister of the Tang dynasty, revered by everyone in the world. Chapter 455. The current Zhang Shougui was no longer the same as before, and Wang Jiling had long ago withdrawn from the position of prime minister and the imperial court. He was no longer that lofty bright minister of the Tang dynasty, second only to one and above all. In terms of authority and status, Zhang Shougui was no longer inferior to Wang Jiling. At the very least, he no longer needed to look up to him. But even so, Zhang Shougui did not dare to be careless. Zhang Jiling, I'm not making things difficult for your grandson. It's your Wang clan that has repaid kindness with enmity and made an enemy of me. See for yourself what he's done. Your good grandson took advantage of my absence to attack my subordinates. You're also a soldier, so you should know what the consequences are for taking people to attack active soldiers, right? Zhang Shougui coldly said. Although his expression was cold, there was a tinge of fear in his expression, completely different from how he treated his old butler. This was not just because Wang Jiling was unwilling to retreat. Although he had resigned from the position of prime minister, he had still been invited into the Four Quarters embassy by the Holy Emperor, so he still possessed enormous influence in the court. It was also because Zhang Shougui knew that Wang Jiling was an extremely powerful scholar. Wang Jiling was not famed for his literary prowess, but his cultivation on the literary path had been acknowledged by the literary world several decades ago. If not for the fact that Wang Jiling's ambitions lay elsewhere, he might have already become the leader of the literary path. Wang Jiling was getting older, and the wounds he had sustained on the battlefield had caused his cultivation on the martial path to decline by the day. He was no longer as formidable as he had been in the past. But his cultivation in the literary path would definitely not be affected by this kind of thing. On the contrary, as he grew older, his psychic energy would only get stronger and stronger, and his attainments on the literary path would be even higher than his attainments on the martial path. Back when he was still the bright minister of the Tang dynasty and presiding over the court, Wang Jiuling's psychic energy had already reached a terrifying level. After so many years, not even Zhang Shogui knew what level his cultivation had reached. Those on the literary path were skilled in mental attacks that could pierce through stellar energy to attack the soul. This was completely different from the martial path. In front of the leader of the literary path, not even the strongest martial artist dared to be careless. Wang Jiuling was in the Four Quarters embassy, but he could still sense what was going on. Moreover, his thoughts were transmitted to everyone's minds. One could well imagine his strength. Although I don't know what's going on. However, I will give you an explanation for this matter sooner or later. That old voice was mellow and heavy, resounding in everyone's mind once again. Grandfather. On the other side, Wang Chong was sitting on the ground with his eyes narrowed. But at this moment his eyes widened. If the first time was an illusion, then at this moment, Wang Chong was sure that the voice belonged to his grandfather. I didn't think that even Grandpa would come. Wang Chong's heart was in turmoil, but he soon calmed down. He had mobilized all of the Wang family's guards in the capital, as well as the forces that were on good terms with the Wang family. Even Elder Yi and Elder Zhao had come. It would be strange if his grandfather didn't know about it. Wang Jiuling, I'll wait for your explanation. On the other side, Zhang Shogui was not thinking so much. Wang Jiuling had already appeared, and with the addition of the King of Song, someone of Zhang Shogui's status would not be able to intervene. Let's go. With a cold face, Zhang Shogui turned and left with a wave of his sleeve. Behind him, although the Yuzhou soldiers were unwilling, they could only follow. Wait a moment. Just when Zhang Shogui was about to leave, a voice came from behind him. This voice stunned not only Zhang Shogui, but also Bai Siling, Zhao Yadong Sugan, Martianus Yi and Huang Qianer. Because all of them could tell that this was Wang Chong's voice. What does he want to do? Everyone was dumbfounded. No one knew what Wang Chong was thinking. From start to finish, Wang Chong had never given a reason for his actions. Wang Chong was not an impulsive person. At the very least, in the majority of their interactions with Wang Chong, he had always been a rational person. Thus, his sudden impulsiveness was even more perplexing. Lord Zhang, please wait. Wang Chong pushed himself up with his right palm and stood up. Step by step, he began to walk toward Zhang Shogui. The rain was already beginning to lessen, no longer as heavy as before. But there were still pearls falling. Brat, what do you want to do? Zhang Shogui turned his head and stared at Wang Chong, his eyes dark and unkind. The courtyard was quiet, the mood rather tense. No one knew what Wang Chong wanted to do at a time like this. The timing was far too sensitive. Wang Chong said nothing, but when he was still several zhang from Zhang Shogui, he stopped and gave a deep bow. There is something that Wang Chong never had the chance to say. Lord Protector General, many thanks for your assistance in the regional commander's incident, and when Wang Chong was imprisoned. As soon as he finished speaking, the entire place fell into dead silence. Zhang Shogui stared at Wang Chong, his eyes flickering. But in the end he sneered. I thought that you'd forgotten. Zhang Shogui coldly said, his voice brimming with derision. He naturally knew what Wang Chong was talking about. When Foman Linta, Gao Xianji, and Gushu Han appealed to the imperial court to have Wang Chong executed, it was he and Zhangzhou Jinxiong who had led the charge to support Wang Chong. Zhang Shogui was the mighty Anong Protector General, and in both seniority and status, he was more than a single level above Wang Chong. He naturally couldn't bring up this matter of his own volition. If Wang Chong didn't bring it up, he would never do so for the rest of his life. But it was precisely because he had helped Wang Chong that Zhang Shogui had become even more enraged when he realized that the one who had attacked him was Wang Chong. Saying that the Wang clan returned kindness with enmity was no joke. No matter what Lord Protector General's reasoning was, no matter how dissatisfied Lord Protector General was with me, kindness is kindness. I owe Lord Protector General a favor. In the future I will definitely return this favor. However, this is not my true reason for calling out to Lord Protector General. As Wang Chong spoke, he slowly straightened his body, his expression neither servile nor overbearing. Even after the battle, even after experiencing so many things, even after almost dying at Zhang Shougui's hands, Wang Chong remained as calm and composed as ever. Even before Zhang Shougui, the Anong Protector General, he showed no fear. Zhang Shougui's eyes swirled as he examined Wang Chong. Finally, there was a slight change in his expression. "Just what do you want to say?" Zhang Shougui sternly said. In the Yuzhou Protectorate headquarters, he had long ago obtained an investigation report on this youth. Although he had clashed with Wang Chong, and it had even been extremely unpleasant, Zhang Shougui would not underestimate Wang Chong too much. "I only want to say that Ming Emperor has an insightful heart. Although the capital is far, it is a clear example everywhere. Lord Protector General resides in Yuzhou, and as a subject, it is best for you to have a more respectful heart," Wang Chong said profoundly. Buzz! Zhang Shougui's body trembled at these words, and his face instantly paled. Even at China? Not even when Sugan was killed had he shown this sort of reaction. In addition, I hope that Lord Protector General will be more careful of the people at your side. Sometimes your true enmity is not necessarily with those standing in front of you, but with those standing at your side, Wang Chong said. As he spoke, Wang Chong's gaze fell upon Yaoyuan, a profound look in his eyes. Zhang Shougui looked at Wang Chong with a strange gaze, but he quickly regained his composure. There's no need for you to say these words. It would be more appropriate if it were your grandfather." Zhang Shougui coldly sneered. Wang Chong only faintly smiled, declining to comment. As he watched Zhang Shougui and his Yuzhou soldiers vanish beyond the crumbling walls, Wang Chong's expression did not change in the slightest. Whether or not Zhang Shougui listened, Wang Chong had already done all he could for Zhang Shougui. Zhang Shougui was not a bad person. Even though he had clashed with Zhang Shougui, even though he had almost died at Zhang Shougui's hands, Wang Chong did not hide this fact. But there was a major problem with his personality. Zhang Shougui was too proud. At the same time, he was too conceited. His decades in the military, his age of 60, and his belief that he would be the future prime minister of the empire, had made Zhang Shougui look down on everyone and extremely conceited. He was so conceited that he would not listen to any advice, and besides the Holy Emperor, he would ignore all rules. No, it was not just the emperor. In truth, in Yuzhou, Zhang Shougui's arrogance had reached a point where he even dared to fool the Holy Emperor. In the future, he would be framed by Yaoyuan and lose his position as Protector General. One reason was because he had been careless and unprepared. The other reason was also because of his personality. If not for his arrogance and conceit, even if Yaoyuan wanted to frame him, Yaoyuan might not have succeeded. As for how Yaoyuan had managed to successfully frame Zhang Shougui in such a short time, not even Wang Chong was very clear about this. There were far too many riddles and doubtful points in the events of the past. Even Wang Chong had gone too far. Although Yaoyuan had managed to become Zhang Shougui's adopted son, in Wang Chong's view, this adopted son was probably just an empty title. His true status in the Anong army was not very good. How had he managed to replace Zhang Shougui and take control of the Yuzhou army in just 2 short years? Even many of his seniors from back then found it incomprehensible. Moreover, Zhang Shougui was a legendary figure of the empire, a titan of the army. His strength could be seen from today's events. Just the tip of the iceberg was enough to suppress all of them. But after the Holy Emperor stripped him of his military authority, Zhang Shougui died of depression less than a year later. Died of depression? What did this mean? This sort of supreme expert, who could destroy the heavens with a snap of his fingers, would also die of depression? This was simply a joke. At the very least, in Wang Chong's view, this sort of thing was unacceptable, completely absurd. But Zhang Shougui's death was an undeniable fact. Far too many inexplicable things had occurred around that calamity. Some of these things could be changed by human strength, and some things could not be changed by human strength. Whether one liked Zhang Shougui or not, there was one thing that everyone had to admit. Zhang Shougui's death was a massive loss to the empire. It was precisely because of his death that the rebel army of Yuzhou had completely lost control. Walala! The clattering of hooves against the rain came from the distance. Upon hearing this sound, Wang Chang's shoulders swayed, but his eyes quickly cleared. This was the sound of the imperial army. All the scions of the great clans living in the capital were extremely familiar with this sort of sound. There was no doubt that the battle was over, and his uncle had arrived with his men. The imperial army was responsible for guarding the capital, and there were some things that not even his uncle could stop. Let's go as well. Chapter 456. With the withdrawal of Wang Chong and the others, the Wang clan's operation, that had alarmed countless great clans of the capital, came to an end. But the effects of this matter were only just beginning. Why didn't you kill him? A furious voice suddenly broke the silence in the rain. In the darkness, the orderly advance of the troops suddenly came to a halt. All was quiet in the darkness, all sound vanishing without a trace. Even the sound of the rain had become indistinct. An uneasy aura began to spread through the air. Some people seemed to sense something, and all of them fell silent out of fear. What did you say? After what seemed like an instant, and also like countless eons, they finally heard that familiar, bone-chilling voice. Why didn't you kill that brat? And Yao Yuishan didn't seem to sense anything. His eyes were red as he stared at the figure in front of him, his body trembling. Yao Yuishan, you're crazy. Is this how you speak to Commander? Shut your mouth. Hurry and apologize to Commander. Cui Qianyu and Tian Qinjin paled as they hurriedly said. The other Yuzhou soldiers were also stunned. No one dared to speak to Commander like this. No one. In Yuzhou, anyone who dared to defy Commander was already buried in the ground. For in Yao Yuishan to dare speak to Commander like this, he was simply insane. Slap. Before anyone could react, a powerful palm slapped in Yao Yuishan across the face. The slap sent in Yao Yuishan flying through the air. Spinning like a paper kite, he crashed into the wall of the alley 7 or 8 zhang away. The wall, more than 2 zhang tall and covered in moss, was as sturdy as rock, but now it was smashed to pieces, sending bricks and sand flying everywhere. And Yao Yuishan sat up after crashing to the ground and vomited a mouthful of blood, his face as white as a sheet of paper. The surrounding crowd lowered their heads, not even daring to breathe too loudly. And Yao Yuishan had been too impudent. No one was surprised that he would end up like this. Are you sure that you're talking to me? Zhang Shogui coldly said, his hands behind his back. His face was expressionless, but his body emitted a chilling and dangerous aura. To the people of the underworld continent, the dangerous aura was too familiar. Every time this sort of energy appeared on the commander's body, several corpses would appear beneath the ground of the Anong Protectorate. Don't forget who you are. Yuan Ashina? Shu Gan is just 2 insignificant slave catchers under my command. There are as many slave catchers as Ningguan on the prairie as you want. I can promote you and let you live, but I can also destroy you and let you die. Think carefully before you talk to me properly. The surroundings were quiet. Even Cui Qianyu and Tian Qinjin lowered their heads, not daring to breathe too loudly. They didn't even dare to take a look. The capital is too far, but the commander is very close. In Yuzhou, the commander's orders were far more effective than those of the Holy Emperor. There he had absolute authority. Yes, Yao Yuishan was wrong. Please forgive me, Marshal. After some time, and Yao Yuishan's voice finally rang out in everyone's ears. His head was lowered, his hair draped over his shoulders, and he remained motionless. Around him, Cui Qianyu and the others breathed a sigh of relief. They had truly been afraid that Yao Yuishan would be impulsive enough to argue with the commander. Fortunately, Yao Yuishan had finally come to his senses. I'll treat it as a moment of confusion and spare you this time. But if there's a next time, you know the result. Zhang Shogui coldly said. After saying those words, Zhang Xian turned around and walked away with large strides. The others did not dare to be slow and hurriedly followed. A gentle breeze blew the rain against their faces. But no one saw that after Zhang Shogui left, Yao Yuishan slowly raised his head from the kneeling position. Beneath his disheveled hair, his eyes were not the humble and fearful look that everyone imagined, but a blood-red and venomous red. One day, I will make you pay the price. That voice echoed in his mind. And then Yao Yuishan swayed as he struggled to his feet, and began to walk forward, putting aside Zhang Shogui and the Yuzhou soldiers. The moment the battle in the courtyard concluded, the news seemed to spread wings, flying to every corner of the capital and into the hands of the various clan heads. The sky had darkened, but this time, it was not because of the dark clouds, but because it was already nightfall. But in the capital, there were far more people who were not sleepy. From the moment Wang Chong had issued his order, countless great clans had been keeping a close eye on this place. Just what is this fellow doing? In the lamplight, Yao Guangyi gripped a piece of paper, his brow furrowed. He and Wang Chong had interacted more than once, both in the light and in the shadows. Although he didn't want to admit it, Yao Guangyi had to admit that this youngest son of the Wang clan was gradually becoming a great thorn in his side. But even someone of Yao Guangyi's intelligence couldn't understand why that brat from the Wang clan had put on such a muddle-headed show. Several hours had passed since he had received the news, but even after thinking for a long time, Yao Guangyi still couldn't understand Wang Chong's intentions. In the past, Yao Guangyi had at least been able to see what Wang Chong wanted to do and what his goal was. But this time, he truly couldn't understand. Had they mobilized such a large force just to kill an insignificant Turkic who? How could this be? Yao Guangyi didn't even remember his name. If the Wang clan thought that he would believe them, they were insulting Yao Guangyi's intelligence. It shouldn't be. Yao Guangyi's brow rose, his mind in a panic. This feeling of not being able to understand the other party's intentions made him feel extremely uncomfortable. And he also felt a deep sense of defeat. Father, Wang Chong's level of ability is still far from reaching that level. Could all of this be the will of that person in the Wang clan? But isn't this method a little too direct, a little too childish? No matter how I think about it, it doesn't make sense. Father, please enlighten me. Yao Guangyi sighed deeply. He suddenly turned to look at his father, who was seated peacefully in the room, and bowed deeply. His father resided in the Four Quarters Embassy, and he had passed down an order that no one in the Yao clan was to enter the Four Quarters Embassy to visit him unless there was an important matter. Furthermore, the older he got, the less time his father had to show his face. Yao Guangyi was still able to meet his father a few times as his biological son. But as for the other members of the Yao clan, in the past he could still meet them 3 to 4 times a year. But now, he probably wouldn't be able to meet them for several years at a time. Even for Yao Guangyi, Old Master Yao had made it clear that he shouldn't come to the Four Quarters Embassy in the future. The more one used authority, the less effective it would be. The less one used it, the more one would be respected. The more mysterious something was, the more one would revere it. Yao Guangyi knew that this was the old master's way of survival. However, this matter was out of the ordinary, so he had no choice but to come. The room was silent. Old Master Yao's hands were placed on the 5-chi tall cane, but his body was hidden in the darkness, not moving in the slightest. The flickering candlelight cast a shadow over his entire face, making it hard for one to see him clearly. Only the flickering candlelight continued to shine on the robe he was wearing. Wang Bo isn't such a person. After an unknown period of time, Old Master Yao suddenly spoke. There was an indescribable tone in his voice. The person who understood you the most would always be your enemy. Even though he had competed with Wang Jiling for several decades, Yao Chong had to admit that the person who lived next door was indeed a person who was one with knowledge and action. Other people might be humble, thrifty and restrained, but this was just a means to earn their reputation. But Wang Jiling was truly such a person. If not for his inflexible personality, given Wang Jiling's contributions to the throne and his position as prime minister, assisting the Holy Emperor, and founding the Tang dynasty, the Wang clan would have long enjoyed great wealth and power. How could they have been suppressed by his Yao clan? This could be considered as the Wang clan and Wang Jiling restraining themselves. But even so, Wang Jiling's name had spread throughout the world, and he was loved and respected by the people of the world. Even if Yao Chong wanted to learn this, he wouldn't be able to. I understand what you want to say, but even if the Wang clan wanted to avoid arousing suspicion and sully themselves, they wouldn't use such methods. At the very least, Wang Bo wouldn't. Old Master Yao leaned on his cane and closed his eyes, seemingly in deep thought. Although I don't know what's going on, there's a high chance that this matter was that child's idea and has nothing to do with Wang Bo. A hint of doubt could be heard in his voice. There weren't many things that Old Master Yao couldn't understand, but the matter that had happened today wasn't something that even he could understand, not to mention Yao Guangyi. He could understand the crux of the matter, and he could even determine that it was all Wang Chang's idea. But he also couldn't understand why Wang Bo would do such a thing. That Hu was probably just a Hu, and there was nothing special about him. Wang Chong had probably never met him before. But why would Wang Chong act so crazily? Why would he even offend Zhang Shogui? Old Master Yao closed his eyes and fell into deep thought. Our Yao clan shouldn't get involved in this matter for now. Let's wait and see before deciding what to do. Old Master Yao suddenly said, "Yes, father." A hint of surprise flashed through Yao Guangyi's eyes, but he quickly lowered his head and respectfully said, "But father, this is such a good opportunity. Are we really not going to use it to suppress him?" What you want to do is your business. But don't use your authority in the Bureau of Military Personnel. If you really want to do something, inform the Court of Judicial Review. Yes. Yao Guangyi was overjoyed. In addition, Old Master Yao leaned on his cane and suddenly said, "Investigate that Hu. Go and investigate that Hu. He might be useful in the future." Yes. Chapter 457. Similar events were taking place in various parts of the capital. In the several decades that the Wang clan had lived in the capital, this was the only time it had taken such an action. Ha, wonderful. The Wang clan is seeking its own destruction. A burst of wild and insolent laughter suddenly came from the Qingqi residence. A black-bearded middle-aged man dressed in a golden imperial robe stood in the middle of the room, his arms wide open. He was so happy that his entire body was trembling, and even his eyebrows were about to squint. "Your Highness has tried to contact Zhang Shogui before, but Zhang Shogui never replied. All the letters have been like rocks sinking into the ocean. However, this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Zhang Shogui did not provoke the Wang clan, but the Wang clan provoked him. So many great clans of the capital have seen this, and Zhang Shogui can't possibly hold back. Milord has gained yet another ally." At the side, the goateed elder bowed with a solemn expression as he spoke respectfully. Ha, you really know how to talk. Take my seal. Immediately invite Zhang Shogui. In addition, pass on my order. Immediately notify the Bureau of Military Personnel, the Court of Judicial Review, and the Imperial Army. Oh, even the Imperial Clan Court. I want that brat of the Wang clan to be thrown into prison as quickly as possible. I'd like to see just who will save him this time." As King Qi spoke, his eyes became extremely cold and sinister. In the imperial court, the King of Song had always been his greatest rival, and the Wang clan assisting the King of Song was a thorn in his side that he wanted nothing more than to get rid of as soon as possible. Alas, his plan to deal with the King of Song and the Wang clan had failed on the verge of success, and his plans to deal with the Wang clan had all been foiled by Wang Chong. King Qi had long ago been suppressing a bellyful of rage, but because of his status, King Qi simply could not recklessly deal with Wang Chong. In a place like the capital, there were many eyes and ears. Not even an imperial prince could act recklessly. But this time is different. You're the one who walked right into the trap. In the darkness, an extremely cold light flashed across King Qi's eyes. This was foreordained to be a restless night. The Yao clan, the King Qi residence, all the dukes and nobles of the capital, and even the great clans, were all trying to guess at the Wang clan's inexplicable actions. In a place like the capital, those who could stand for decades without falling were mostly people who had weathered great storms and seen all sorts of schemes. These people were extremely familiar with the political struggles in the imperial court and the mutual deception between the aristocratic families. There were very few things that they couldn't see through. But that night, everything that happened was laid out clearly in front of everyone's eyes. But no one dared to say that they clearly saw what happened that night. This had never happened before. "Grandfather, In Four Quarters Embassy, Wang Chong called out, and then kneeled in front of his grandfather. The atmosphere in the room was solemn. Wang Chong's grandfather, the Duke Jiao that everyone in the world revered, sat at the head, while Wang Chong's big uncle stood on his right, and his uncle Li Lin stood on his left. On this occasion, even Duke Yi and Elder Zhao had been sent outside to stand guard. Other than members of the Wang clan, no one else could enter the room. All eyes were on Wang Chong. There were all sorts of guesses about today's events, but only they knew that this operation actually had nothing to do with them. In truth, everything had been Wang Chong's idea, the result of his own actions. But not even the members of the Wang clan knew why Wang Chong had done this. "Chonger, it's no problem for you to mobilize the guards of my residence. Even the matter that happened tonight, including the matter that happened in the Drunken Sparrow restaurant, I'll deal with it for you. None of this is a problem. After all, we're one family. But can you tell me why all of this is happening?" Wang Jin spread out his sleeves, his expression grave. "That's right, Chonger, there are no outsiders here. Just why did you do this? Can you tell me now?" Wang Chong's uncle Li Lin said. Only he knew how much pressure he had been under tonight, how many favors he had owed, and the matter with the imperial army was far from over. One could already imagine the many troubles that awaited him in the future. But Li Lin didn't care. Although he didn't know the specifics, he had complete trust in Wang Chong. However, Li Lin had never imagined that this matter would involve a personage on the level of the Dong and Protector General, Zhang Shogui. Everyone was waiting for Wang Chong's explanation. Warning: user is attempting to reveal information that should not have been revealed. This information will severely affect the fate of the world and the course of events, resulting in an exponential attack and rejection by the power of the world. User does not have the strength to protect himself and will instantly die. In order to protect user, all attempts by user to reveal the secrets of heaven will be silenced. Once a third attempt is made, all destiny energy will be deducted and user will die. Wang Chong's lips moved, and just when he was about to speak, a cold and emotionless voice rang out at his ear. In a flash, all words became nothingness. "You still can't say it?" Wang Chong quietly said to himself. Although he had long ago expected this result, Wang Chong still felt incredibly bitter. Today's events were bound to be seen as crazy and incomprehensible by many, but he couldn't even reveal it to his closest kin. At this moment, Wang Chong felt an indescribable loneliness in his heart. He finally had no companions on his path, and the mission he shouldered was something that no one else knew about. This loneliness was too unbearable. For a moment, Wang Chong really wanted to disregard everything and speak the truth, especially after his mission failed. But Wang Chong knew that this was impossible. Even if he wanted to speak, his grandfather, big uncle, and uncle-in-law probably wouldn't be able to hear him. "Grandfather, big uncle, uncle-in-law, do you believe me?" Wang Chong thought for a long time, then raised his head and bitterly asked. "Chonger." Wang Zhen was just about to speak when a thin and withered hand reached out and interrupted him. "Child, speak. No matter what you say, grandfather will believe you." Wang Jiuling sat on the highest seat, looking down at Wang Chong, said with a wise gaze that could see through the affairs of the world. His eyes were affectionate and full of tolerance. After all that had happened, Wang Chong saw no hint of blame in his eyes. In this hall, there was no Duke Jiao, whose name had spread throughout the world and was revered by all, nor were there any important or old officials of the court that deeply loved the holy emperor. Standing in front of Wang Chong was an ordinary grandfather, an ordinary old man. This was a grandfather speaking to his grandson. For a moment, Wang Chong felt like crying. Although he had said nothing about evaluation, for some reason, Wang Chong felt that his grandfather seemed to understand something. These emotions flew through his mind, but Wang Chong quickly regained his composure. "Grandfather, big uncle, uncle-in-law, I cannot tell you the exact reason for today's matter." Wang Chong kneeled on the ground, his eyes red. "But there is one thing that I ask of you. No matter what, you must believe me. And Yaoyuan, that who must die. Otherwise, he will become a great calamity for the empire." Buzz! The moment Wang Chong spoke, the other three people in the room trembled. Wang Chang's big uncle Wang Zhen and uncle-in-law Li Lin looked at each other in dismay. Even Wang Chang's grandfather revealed a look of surprise. "Chonga, you're not joking, right?" Wang Zhen said. He knew that Wang Chong had his reasons for doing this. But Wang Zhen had never expected Wang Chong to bring up a calamity for the empire. It wasn't that he didn't trust his nephew, but this sort of thing was far too unreliable. He had long ago gathered a great deal of information on that Hu. He was just an extremely ordinary Hu under Zhang Shogui's command. Who knew how many Hu like this Zhang Shogui had in the Anong Protectorate of the Northeast? The only people that Wang Zhen truly paid attention to were the foreign brothers. But the foreign brothers were only a recent matter. The truly special ones with extraordinary backgrounds were the other three. As for this Inyaluishan, he was a nameless nobody. He had only run into him by sheer luck. Moreover, it was common for Hu to get along with each other. After drinking a bowl of wine, they would immediately become sworn brothers. But that was just a name. The Hu did not have any culture of swearing brotherhood. This so-called swearing brotherhood was the culture of the Han. When it came to the Hu, they were just monkeys in disguise, and the feeling of swearing brotherhood became much weaker. Chong'er, Yuzhou is Zhang Shogui's territory. His methods are fierce, and he never shows mercy when suppressing the Hu. Thus, even though he has both Hu and Han, he has never caused any trouble. Under his command, it is impossible for any of the Hu people to be respected. Even if we take 10,000 steps back, even if a formidable Hu does appear, he'll just be a minor character. There are plenty of people in the capital who can deal with him. How could he possibly become a calamity for the empire? Li Lin said from the side. Although he didn't say it explicitly, his meaning was clear. It was clear that he didn't agree with Wang Chang's reasoning. It was truly lacking in persuasion. Big uncle, uncle-in-law, I know that you don't believe me, but that Hu must die. But that Hu must die. I'm not joking. I'm serious about every word I say. Wang Chong sternly said. The Tang dynasty had not yet fallen. The setting sun still shone on it. This massive empire was still bloated and heavy, but it still had figures in the prime of their lives. The war machines of its prime were still operating. Although they were not at their peak, they still had 70 to 80% of their strength. Although a befuddled life had weakened the fighting spirit of the empire, it had the backing of a huge amount of economic support. Although it was on the path of decline, this empire still had a chance to regrow its broken limbs and rise to the peak. And even if it was going to be destroyed, it was still very far from being destroyed. At least, this was what everyone firmly believed. But who could have imagined that this empire would be destroyed in a few short months by the army led by a Hu rising from the northeast? At the start of that rebellion, everyone believed that the empire was still very strong, and that the rebellion would be quickly suppressed. But 3 months later, this empire collapsed in a completely unexpected manner, at the feet of that Hu. The decline that should have taken decades to complete was sped up in just 3 short months. The people of the Central Plains were plunged into misery and suffering, and the once powerful and prosperous Central Plains had been transformed into an Azura hell overnight. Chapter 458. When he thought of his experiences back then, of the mountains of corpses, the collapsed buildings, and the desolate land, Wang Chong felt a stabbing pain in his heart. In that great rebellion, even the nobles were not spared, let alone the common people. This operation had been a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. As long as he could kill Inyaluishan, he could avoid 10 years of civil strife. Alas, in the end he had still failed. He had lost his only chance. This thought made Wang Chong's heart ache. Wang Zhen and Li Lin mentally shook their heads at Wang Chong's words. They had always placed great trust in Wang Chong. Wang Chong's past actions were enough to prove that he was worthy of this trust. But this time, this explanation was truly hard to believe. Grandpa believes in you. Suddenly, an elderly and dignified voice came from behind them. Father! Wang Zhen and Li Lin turned their heads, their eyes filled with shock. Child, Grandpa believes in you. Wang Chong's grandfather once more repeated his words. He had been sitting motionlessly up there this entire time. But at this moment, he slowly stood up with the support of the armrest. You're a smart child. Your grandfather believes that you must have your reasons for doing this. Grandfather. Wang Chong clenched his fists, his eyes red. At this moment, there was nothing more supportive than the trust of one's kin. Tell me, does it have something to do with the seer? Standing above, Wang Chong's grandfather leaned forward slightly, and his voice grew gentler. Buzz. Hearing his father's words, Wang Chong's big uncle Wang Zhen and Uncle Li Lin both trembled. Earlier, they had found Wang Chong's words hard to believe, but now that they heard their father's explanation, everything suddenly began to make sense. Chonga, is what grandfather says true? Wang Zhen sternly asked. You really did encounter a seer? Li Lin chimed in. Wang Chong's actions did not make sense, but if he had encountered some mysterious divination, everything would not be difficult to understand. This could also explain why Wang Chong hated that Hu so much, even though he had never met him, that he was willing to offend Anong Protector General Zhang Shogui. This, Wang Chong was also stunned. His grandfather's words were truly out of his expectations. Even Wang Chong himself was stunned by the words astrologer. Of course, it was impossible for him to have seen any seer. But from a certain perspective, his grandfather's guess was not wrong. Although he had never seen a seer before, he himself was the strongest seer in the world. As a person who had lived 2 lives, there was no one in this world who was clearer than him about the future development of this world. As these thoughts flashed through his mind, Wang Chong quickly regained his composure. Yes, Wang Chong nodded. Chonger, can you tell us the name of that astrologer? Wang Zhen asked. This time, Wang Chong shook his head. He's not willing to let you speak? Wang Zhen frowned. Yes. After a moment of hesitation, Wang Chong clenched his teeth and spoke once more. Although he was unwilling to do this, it seemed that even knowing the future would be greatly limited. In a situation where he couldn't speak the truth, this was probably the best and most acceptable method. Wang Zhen and Li Lin glanced at each other, their brows furrowed. If that astrologer didn't appear, there was no way to get to the bottom of why Wang Chong trusted him so much. However, astrologists had always had a transcendent status. Whether it was among the people or in the palace, they were highly respected. But it was precisely for this reason that the majority of astrologists had strange temperaments. They had always kept a low profile and had eccentric personalities. They were unwilling to interact with outsiders, and they were even more unwilling to have their names known. In the end, they lived the life of a hermit. Wang Chong said that the astrologer didn't want to meet others, and this sort of personality wasn't rare among astrologists. Child, since he isn't willing to meet others, let's forget about it. What do you want grandfather to do for you? Wang Chong's grandfather asked. That's right. No matter what you want to do, you won't be able to do it alone. Grandfather, big uncle, and even your uncle are all here today. How do you want us to help you? Wang Zhen also spoke up with a serious expression, although he still found it hard to accept Wang Chong's words of calamity to the empire. If Wang Chong only wanted to kill an insignificant Hu, then regardless of the reason, Wang Zhen wouldn't hesitate to help him. By the side, Li Lin also nodded. Blood was thicker than water. Although his surname wasn't Wang, he was already a member of the Wang clan. If Wang Chong wanted to kill someone, he wouldn't hesitate to help him. Just as he had always done, Wang Chong said nothing, but his heart was filled with warmth. In this life, the people he treasured the most were his family members. Grandfather, big uncle, uncle-in-law, thank you. For a moment, Wang Chong's heart was truly moved, and he wanted to begin another operation. But Wang Chong quickly dismissed the idea. And Yao Yuishan's strength had never been crucial. He had far too many people at his side who could kill him. But in the end, all his operations had failed. The first failure had been inexplicable, with even Li Sai being struck by lightning. The second time, a bunch of Yuzhou soldiers had appeared. And in the end, even a supreme figure of the empire like Zhang Shogui had appeared. Just like the Stone of Destiny had always reminded him, it was never easy to change one's fate. When Yao Yuishan was at his weakest and most defenseless, he had still failed. Wang Chong was worried that if he continued, some other variable would appear. Moreover, Yao Yuishan was now on guard and would definitely be extremely careful. And with the protection of a supreme expert like Zhang Shogui, there was no chance for him to strike. Although the Wang clan was a clan of ministers and generals, it was still powerless against an important minister of the empire like Zhang Shogui, a high official on the border. Perhaps this is fate. I'm still too weak right now and can't kill him. At least before the Yuzhou rebellion, no one will be able to kill him. I can only wait for the future, Wang Chong quietly said to himself. From the end of the battle until now, he had gradually come to understand many things. And Yao Yuoshan was no minor character. In this world, he occupied an extremely important place. The Yuzhou rebellion he had started was an important part of this world. If he killed in Yao Yuoshan, it would be a completely different world. Thus, Yao Yuoshan could not die, at least not until he had started the Yuzhou rebellion and completed his mission in this world. He could not die so easily. Thus, even though he had gathered so much strength, he had still not been able to kill him. Thus, the Stone of Destiny had warned him not to meet with him too early. Any chance encounter ahead of time would only cause Yao Yuoshan's strength to increase. And the world energy protecting him would only grow stronger and stronger. Because no matter how evil Yao Yuoshan was, he was still a part of this world. And Wang Chong was not. Defeating a person was easy, but defeating a world was not. Grandfather, big uncle, uncle-in-law, I need you to help me find someone. Wang Chong raised his head and suddenly said. Wang Chong quickly left the Four Quarters Embassy, as did Wang Chong's big uncle and uncle-in-law. Not long after Wang Chong left the Four Quarters Embassy, a series of light, cat-like footsteps came from the back of the hall. The curtain was raised, and an old granny with a kind face and a head of silver hair walked out, carrying a tray of tea. On the tray, the tea in the 4 porcelain teacups had gone cold long ago. This child seems to have a lot on his mind. As the Wang clan's old madam watched Wang Chong leave, her eyes were filled with worry. If he doesn't say it, there's nothing we can do. The Wang clan's old master sighed. If Wang Zhen and Li Lin were here, they would assuredly be flabbergasted, because the old master's current attitude was completely different from before. It was obvious that his talk about astrologer had been completely random, but whether it was Wang Zhen, Li Lin, or Wang Chong, they had all been fooled. This child must have his own difficulties. Otherwise, he would never hide it from even his own family. The Wang clan's old madam sighed. After experiencing so many trials and tribulations in their lives, how could the two of them not see through Wang Chong's thoughts? Tonight, Wang Chong had been far too abnormal, but he also seemed to have some difficulties that he couldn't speak of. The two of them had experienced so many ups and downs, so how could they be willing to put the juniors of their clan in a difficult position? This was why the Wang clan's old master had said those words. The Wang clan's old master said nothing, but a long sigh came from the hall. As he walked out of the Four Quarters Embassy, Wang Chong's mind was in disarray. Although his conflict with Zhang Shogui had come to an end, Wang Chong knew that this matter was far from over. Getting into the carriage, Wang Chong first went to visit his cousin Wang Liang. Wei Anfang and the others found them on the second floor of Drunken Sparrow Restaurant. Although their injuries were severe, they were not fatal. By the time Wang Chong went to visit, his injuries had already stabilized. With specialized people taking care of him, it wouldn't be long before he made a full recovery. But in the end, his martial arts were still lacking, so even after his injuries he was still in a coma. Wang Chong didn't stay long. Knowing that he was in no danger, he left and returned to Deflecting Blade Manor. On the summit a gale blew. Although it was late at night, Deflecting Blade Manor was still brightly lit. By Xiling, Zhao Yadong, Martianus E, Zhao Jingdian, Fang Xianying, Su Gan, Wei Anfang, Huang Qianer, Zhao Qiqin. All of them were standing on the summit, silently gazing at Wang Chong for a long time. In this operation, all of them had sustained significant injuries, but they had only done some simple bandaging. However, everyone only did a simple dressing. Although it was late at night, no one had any intention of going down to rest. This was because everyone had a thought in their minds. If this thought was not resolved, no one would be able to sleep. Wang Chong. Martianus E was the first to step forward and break the silence. Her expression was solemn, and the others didn't look any better. After the battle in the courtyard was over, everyone had followed Wang Chong's orders and returned to Deflecting Blade Manor. Just like Marchioness E, everyone was waiting for an explanation. There were far too many inexplicable and incomprehensible aspects of today's operation. The sudden target, the sudden appearance of a group of who, and then the relentless pursuit of a seemingly unimportant who. But in the end, no one had expected that the one who had appeared behind these people was Zhang Shogui. They did not care about what they did for Wang Chong. Even if they died in battle, they had nothing to complain about. After all, this was their own choice. But they needed an explanation. At the very least, they needed to know why they had done what they had done. In the quiet night, countless pairs of eyes turned to Wang Chong as if waiting for something. No one spoke. There was nothing but the howling of the wind on the summit. Wang Chong slowly raised his head, countless thoughts flitting through his mind like lightning bolts. I can't tell any of you too much. Wang Chong's voice drifted through the night. As he met everyone's gaze, Wang Chong's eyes slowly hardened. But there is one thing I can tell all of you. None of you will regret today's events. All was quiet on the summit. The crowd stared at Wang Chong, and Wang Chong stared back, but no one spoke. An uneasy atmosphere hung in the air. Time seemed to have stopped at this moment. Every second seemed to be stretched to infinity. I believe in you. Bai Xiling suddenly walked out of the crowd, the first to break the silence. Although I don't know why, it's enough for me to hear your words. I believe in you. Haha, I also believe in you. I'm not that curious. Just like on a trial mission, I'll do whatever you say. The second to walk out was Su Gan. A soft corner of Wang Chong's heart was touched, and his eyes suddenly became moist. Haha, just based on those words of yours, you're still the same you I know. If you need anything in the future, just call. Our Zhao clan will definitely do its best. Zhao Yadong also walked out with a smile. This was not her first time interacting with Wang Chong. Wang Chong had already used his own abilities and actions to prove himself. At that time, she had chosen to believe in Wang Chong, so she naturally wouldn't doubt him now. Thank you. Wang Chong was moved. Haha, young master, there's no need for you to explain anything to me. No matter what you decide to do, no matter where it is, I will stand at your side. A few moments later, Zhao Jingdian walked out of the crowd and naturally went to stand at Wang Chong's side. He had only been waiting on the mountain a long time ago, which was why he was standing with the crowd. He had never doubted his young master. If not for the fact that he wanted to avoid a misunderstanding, he wouldn't have even stepped forward, wouldn't have even said these words. With Bai Xiling, Zhao Yadong, Su Gan, and Zhao Jingdian stepping forward, more and more people stepped forward. I believe in you. I believe in you. I believe in you. I believe in you. Marchioness E, Chen Burang, Sun Jiming, Zhuang Jingping, Qi Weisi, Marchioness E, one figure after another stepped forward. Each of them spoke the simplest of words and used the simplest of actions to express their support for Wang Chong. 1, 2, 3, countless of them, in the cold night. Wang Chong felt a warmth in his heart as he gazed at those familiar eyes, the firm conviction and support in them. A pine tree that did not experience wind and rain could not grow its strength of character. And a jade that did not experience carving would never become great. This operation had not defeated the crowd. On the contrary, it had brought them closer together. In a daze, Wang Chong seemed to see a pair of invisible wings slowly unfurling. Chapter 459. Bai Xiling, Zhao Yadong, Su Gan, and the others quickly left. Zhao Qiqin, Huang Qianer, and Wei Anfang and the other members of Deflecting Blade Manor also left. On this night, many people descended from the mountain. Just like Wang Chong, many of them needed to go back and give an explanation to their families after all that had happened. The densely packed Deflecting Blade Manor abruptly fell silent, leaving only a few lanterns swaying in the cold wind. Cuckoo! The cry of a nighthawk suddenly came from above, bringing with it a whistling sound as it flew towards the top of the mountain. How much longer? In the lonely night, Wang Chong stood at the edge of the summit, his hands held behind his back as he looked down at the pitch-black mountains. The night wind blew at the corner of his robe, making whooshing sounds, and making people feel even colder. The Imperial Army is already moving out, and I hear that the Court of Judicial Review has already dispatched troops, and is on their way. And I hear that there's also some activity in the palace. The eagle's voice came from the darkness, brimming with worry. He was standing not far from Wang Chong, perched on his shoulder on the nighthawk that had just flown down from the sky. He had just finished reading a piece of white paper and thrown it into the wind, its fragments flying everywhere. One had to pay a price for impulsiveness. Quite a few who had died in Drunken Sparrow restaurant. And in that courtyard on the edge of the capital, no small number of Yuzhou soldiers had died there. Such a major incident had taken place at the foot of the Son of Heaven, involving an armed melee, and an important minister on the border of the empire like Zhang Shogui. The Imperial Army and Court of Judicial Review could not possibly turn a blind eye to this. In the previous battle, these factions could be said to have been caught off guard. But now that the dust had settled, there was no question that these people had come to capture Wang Chong. In addition, the people of the Chamberlain of Dependencies are currently moving around. They might arrive even faster than the others. With these final words, the eagle's brow was shrouded in a dark cloud. This was not the first time that Wang Chong had clashed with the Chamberlain of Dependencies. Logically speaking, this matter had nothing to do with the Chamberlain of Dependencies. But many who had died this time, and some of them were merchants from the capital, which just so happened to fall under the jurisdiction of the Chamberlain of Dependencies. The Chamberlain of Dependencies had a unique status and enormous authority. It had wanted to deal with Wang Chong for a long time, but in the past, the Wang clan's authority and Wang Chong's caution had never given them a chance, so they had never been able to do anything to him. But this time, it had been delivered by Wang Chong of his own volition. Wang Chong's expression was calm, not too surprised by this. Everything had a price, and he had already thought of this outcome when he took action. This was not the first time he had faced the threat of imprisonment. This had been the Wang 4. Wang had Wang Xiaofei but had two and as someone who had lived two lives, Wang Chong had long ago seen through all of this. He had only appeared here for one goal, for one reason: to live and die for the benefit of the country. How can one avoid it because of fortune or disaster? This was a famous saying from another world, one that Wang Chong used to console himself. Thus, whether it was the Court of Judicial Review or the Chamberlain of Dependencies, Wang Chong did not care. What he truly cared about had never been these things. I understand. In a little while, whether the people from the Court of Judicial Review or the Chamberlain of Dependencies appear, there's no need to stop them. Just let them come. Wang Chong waved his hand absent-mindedly, saying this. Yes, young master. Eagle clenched his teeth and finally lowered his head. Wang Chong said no more. The howling of the wind in the darkness threw the stars into disorder, and it also threw Wang Chong's emotions into disorder. Following the back of Deflecting Blade Mountain, Wang Chong began to aimlessly descend the mountain. The operation to ambush in Yaoyuan had already failed. After today, he needed to properly organize his thoughts, seriously consider what he should do in the future, and what he should do. If he ignored these thoughts, Wang Chong's mind would never be able to calm down. Time slowly passed. Wang Chong strolled alone through the mountains, not allowing anyone to follow him. At some point, the eastern sky was gradually beginning to brighten. Wang Chong believed that he would continue like this, but the development of the situation was far different from what he had imagined. Cuckoo! The strange cry of a bird suddenly rang out in his ears. This cry was completely different from the other cries in the mountains, shattering the silence of the forest, and also shattering Wang Chong's thoughts. Wang Chong frowned and subconsciously raised his head. Through the dim light of the hazy sky, Wang Chong could see that in the southwest sky, a massive bird was flying toward him like a bolt of lightning. This bird was neither an eagle nor a sparrow. Its body was massive, and its entire body was suffused with a golden sheen. It was at least twice the size of a normal eagle, but the most eye-catching of all were the two flame-like red rings on its legs. Buzz! When he saw the red ring on the bird's leg, Wang Chong's dazed eyes seemed to have been set aflame. and he suddenly became clear-headed. An extremely bad feeling welled up in his heart, and Wang Chang's entire body shivered. At this moment, he no longer felt the slightest bit sleepy. Wang Chang recognized this bird. This was a strange bird that came from the Gobi Desert of the western regions. It had a fierce temperament and was extremely fast. It could hunt down the green sea that stood at the top of the pyramid in the sky. Wang Chang had seen it before at the eagle's place. But that wasn't the main point. The main point was that this Eagle King, which had been trained with great effort and energy after his demotion, had been given to Lone Wolf by Wang Chang more than half a year ago, and brought to the southwest of the empire. This Eagle King was ferocious and extremely powerful. It could break through the encirclement of birds in the sky like the green sea. So when Wang Chang gave it to Lone Wolf, he had made it very clear. This Eagle King was not to be used unless it was absolutely necessary, or if there was an extremely dangerous situation, or an extremely important matter to report. So even though Lone Wolf had brought this Eagle King with him, he had never used it. Their usual exchange of information was done through ordinary means. The sudden appearance of this Eagle King could only mean one thing. The southwest of the empire had undergone a drastic change, and an extremely important one at that. How could this be? I clearly told him to use this bird. Wang Chang's brows twitched as he suddenly had an extremely bad feeling. Whoosh! Just as Wang Chang was deep in thought, the wind whistled. The Eagle King's eyes were sharp and bright. It flapped its two giant golden wings, and slowed down as it descended toward Wang Chang. Wang Chang subconsciously stretched out his arm. Boom! The heavens and earth shook. At almost the same time, an ice-cold voice that made one shudder suddenly rang out in Wang Chang's mind. Host has lived for a year and accumulated more than 400 points of destiny energy. The Trial of Destiny mission has officially been activated. Upon completion of the mission, Host will receive a new title, Controller of Destiny. Host's survivability will be greatly strengthened, and Host's ability to resist the restraints of the world will be strengthened, as well as the ability to dominate destiny. At the same time, new rewards will be unlocked. Mission failed. Host will die. New host will be found. Boom! Hearing the warning voice in his mind, Wang Chang's mind shook violently. But before he had time to think, an endless stream of bloody light surged forth. In front of Wang Chang's eyes, the entire world seemed to be covered in a layer of bloody gauze. Everything exuded a dense blood-red color. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.